And welcome back to another edition of Running with James, or should I say, Running with King James. What do y'all think of this chair, guys? I found this chair, and it is miraculous. It's beautiful. I have matching furniture like this that I got from my parents. I loved the red, and I was like, man, can you have that? And they gave it to me one day. She's like, I'm getting rid of it. Do you want it? I was like, yes. Then I found this chair, and I sent a picture of my wife, and I was like, babe, can we have this at the house? And she said, no, I hate that chair. And I was like, that's fine. I have a podcast. I'll put it on my podcast. Then I put it up here in the room, and they said they hate the chair. That meant that there is no doubt in the world I'm having this chair up here just to establish. I feel like Game of Thrones style in this thing. Do I look like I should be like talking to a dragon or something?
You look like King Joffrey.
Yeah. Oh, come on. That's the worst. That's okay. Nice.
I liked the chair a lot in the photo you sent us before I saw it in person, and then I walked in here, and it has a very specific aesthetic to it.
It does.
It's not good.
How is it not good?
Have you ever seen the Netflix?
Okay, first of all, I don't want you to get into too much detail because I don't want to end up hurting your feelings.
That's fine.
Because in response, I feel like you're going to say something that's going to hurt me.
No.
And I'm going to be mean back.
No, it's just what the chair reminds me of.
Because why would I be style is not like your
reflection on you.
Your style is not like necessarily.
Okay, so
you know what I'm saying?
You know, you said you were trying to not hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But you're already like going in for the gut punch.
No, it wasn't. That's what I'm
not.
saying. I'm establishing already.
Okay, You know what, James? Do you like your chair?
I do.
Okay, well then.
I do.
I
And
will keep
actually,
my mouth shut.
if you're watching now, let us know if you like the chair or not. If you guys don't like this chair,
if you're happy,
I'm keeping it.
Then I'm content.
No, you're not.
From an artistic standpoint, it was good. I mean, you think about bringing your eyes across the screen.
Thank
There's
you.
red.
I mean, it's definitely calling attention to
brings
the focal
together.
point.
The only thing I'm just not a huge fan of is just I don't necessarily like. There's some different things I feel like don't necessarily like bring it together perfectly. I feel like we need some additions, like maybe a different kind of chair, a different style of chair, color, maybe to make it pop a little different,
Maybe
right?
so, yeah.
Maybe even a different table here.
So now the chair is the focal point. You change everything around the chair.
That's the problem. That's what I feel like the problem is going to be, right? So anyway, guys, let's forget about the chair. I just felt like I needed to bring it up because we haven't been here
2 weeks.
in a long
2
time.
weeks.
It's been a while. So a lot has happened. Obviously, you can see we have another face.
A new
Here,
addition.
a new edition.
To the
Did
family.
you ever listen to New Edition, by the way? You know,
I did.
my
Did you
man.
listen? Yes.
All right, these
100%.
guys wouldn't know what the heck that is.
No?
So that they wouldn't even. Yeah, it's a group. It's a singing group.
I gathered that much.
Did you know that the name New Edition was supposed to be a new edition of the Jackson 5?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's why they were called.
Oh, I know
New
who the
Edition.
Jackson
I
Five.
like that.
That's what my mother told me.
Really? I
whether
believe
that's
it.
true or not, but I think
believe
that's
it.
what
I believe it.
That's
So
good. That's cool.
anyway, Rocky's behind the. He's in the production chair today. So, but we've been gone for a couple weeks. There's been so much that has happened, and there's no way we can talk about all the stuff that's happened. I mean, what?
We had a hurricane.
We had a hurricane.
We had a hurricane happen. Not
And
having power for a
basically we didn't have power for whatever, so it was basically the apocalypse. Then I watched an interview the other day of President Biden, and he was introducing President Zelensky, and he introduced him as President Putin, which I thought was hilarious. He was very confused. Then Donald Trump, people tried to kill him. And then, we all have stuff in the Middle East going on everywhere. So there's been a lot of reasons why we haven't filmed or recorded. It's just because the world is falling apart. We're just trying to handle all these things.
Would you
Trying
say
to
it's
fix
our
everything.
fault?
Huh?
Would you say it's our fault?
I think it might actually be because we were not giving the people what they needed and what they wanted.
They fell into
and they had
chaos.
no other option but to go into chaos
Full
and just
chaos.
start going crazy.
It's nice to think that we have such power.
Yeah,
over
I mean,
people.
President Biden is a huge fan of the show, and when he doesn't get his hit, he just doesn't function properly. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
He didn't. I think the week before the debate, he didn't get to watch the show, and it just wasn't good for him. So it's been a crazy couple weeks. So guys, we apologize for not being here, but we're back. We're back, and hopefully as good as we were. I don't know. I feel like a little rusty.
Yeah.
Right. So we're like,
I'm just like waiting because I'm not sure what's going to.
we're 6 minutes in. We hadn't even introduced our guest
I'm not
yet.
even sure what's going to come out of your mouth. So I'm just sitting here waiting.
So I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth either.
All
So
right, let's just introduce this guest then.
thank you, please.
All right, let's get it done. So we have here, we got Tai M Brown. This guy likes to lead with curiosity. His superpower, though, is making people think by asking questions. He was born and raised in Inglewood. Y'all know that from the song.
Song.
Yeah.
Which song?
California.
Oh, okay.
He shouts out Inglewood in it. Shout out Tupac. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
He walked on the football team at Michigan State Wolverines. Am I correct?
What?
I was kidding. That kid is Spartans.
Michigan State
Come on,
is
bro.
not Michigan.
Come on,
Two different-
bro.
That's
I
like
apologize.
Michigan
Oh.
State Spartans, bro.
Yeah, Spartans.
Let's get that right now.
Yeah, let's backtrack. He walked on to be a Spartan at Michigan State before earning an athletic scholarship and graduating with 2 degrees. I didn't know that. And continuing his education at Baylor, Sickle Bears, and Pepperdine. Pepperdine?
Pepperdine.
Pepperdine.
Yep.
Come on, James. He spent the bulk of his career working with American Football Coaches Associations and currently hosts the One Question Leadership podcast. I repeat, the One Question Leadership podcast. Go check that out. He also works as a leadership communication coach, teaching people to tell the story of who they are within the context of what they do. And right now, he is a F-45 training coach at F-45 Culver City in Los Angeles. And a big quote from Ty is, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here.
100%. Just never confuse the Spartans with the other team.
That
you
was my
mentioned.
fault.
Yeah, that's like one of those mortal kind of things, like
Yeah.
mortal sin things.
I thought you were
like,
going to walk
like
off.
Texas.
I was like,
That's
uh-oh.
like,
Yeah.
that's like Mississippi State and Ole Miss. You can't confuse them.
Yeah,
They
it's
take
like
that very
there's something
personally.
like college football is one of those things, or college sports in general, but especially college football. Like there are some like things you just don't do
No,
that
and
just
that's
don't
one of
mix.
them.
Like
That's all right, though. That's all
water
right.
and oil type thing, right?
That's all right.
Well, Ty, thank you for being on the show, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having
We
me.
actually just met a couple days ago. Right?
yes, sir.
So Rocky introduced us, and so he and I got to talk a little bit, and so Rocky thought he'd be a great guest, and so we are a running podcast first. It's running with James, but
Right.
we talk all things fitness, and we talk all things really because I'm a coach. That's all I do, right? Talk about how do we lead, and I'm a big proponent of leading by example. How do you help teach people, to grow and to get better? So I thought it'd be a good idea. Maybe we could talk about it and, mix up like, what are some of the strategies, you've used? And then, you talk to a lot of college directors
Yeah, I
and
do.
ADs and stuff like that, so I'm sure you get a lot of insight on some different strategies that they do all over the country, huh? Right. So I thought maybe we could get into that and then just see where the conversation goes.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I do. I talk to a lot of people in leadership roles that work in college athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And college athletics is unique because it's a part of the academic mission of a university, right?
Right.
And their purpose, most departments' purpose is to enhance the academic mission of the university. And they do that by providing entertainment, but
Yep.
also giving student athletes a good experience so that they can be students as well as athletes.
Right.
Rocky mentioned a quote that I use. What I found after interviewing a number of them and working with football coaches for so long is that the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of, right? As a coach and working with a coach, you probably can see that
Sure.
if the environment is horrible, people don't want to be there, right? If the environment is great, people want to be there even if they don't need to be there.
Yeah.
Pulls them
And
in.
right, so most of my interviews, I guess informally, are trying to prove that theory.
Okay.
Just asking people what they do, how they lead, how they evaluate decisions, what are the perspectives you use, and all those types of things. Basically, how do they create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of? So, yep.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think that's so. A lot of the people that a lot of people I deal with, right, as a coach, like the spectrum is so large, right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people that are brand new; they've never done hardly anything, and they may even be a little older, right? Have some that are younger that are just starting out, and then we have some that are more elite, right, close to the professional level, But one thing I notice a lot of is I have very few people that I coach that were actually in some sort of college athletics, right?
Yep.
So most everybody did some kind of high school sport, right? But there's such a big jump in the level of talent from high school to college, right? And so, and then even so to the pros too, right? It's a whole another level, right? That was one of the things I've told a story here before. I loved basketball, right? That was my goal was to play in the NBA, and I knew I was going to play in the NBA because I was just such a baller. And I remember calling the college coach here at a local college here in Houston, and trying to find out when the open tryouts were, because I didn't get like recruited or anything. I got like recruited by a couple of really small schools, like the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, which was like,
man, look, Mary Hardin Baylor was good. And
yeah,
probably
but
still
like
are,
the year
right?
I was recruited was like literally the first or the second year that they weren't co-ed, or they weren't all women's school, right? Because they used to be an all ladies school, right?
Yeah.
And they became a co-ed school, and it was like they hadn't been co-ed very long,
Right.
So I was going to play at a real school, So, but I remember calling the coach and trying to find out when the tryouts were, and he started asking me questions like, okay, well, what did you do? And I was like, I did this, and I was all this, all state this, all whatever. He's like, okay. He's like, how tall are you? And I was like, well, I'm 5'10". He's like, how much you weigh? 140. Oh, okay. Did you do any other sports? I was like, yeah, I ran track. He's like, we have an amazing track team here. I was like, it just crushed my spirit, right? So, and then when I went to tryouts, it was
a situation.
It was like 6'6" guys doing what I do and playing point guard, right? So it was a whole nother.
That's all right.
Whole nother level.
I tried out twice.
Did you?
The first year I didn't make it. My freshman year.
Yeah.
I went out there and didn't. I'll tell you a story. I went out there, tried out, and didn't make it. So I called home and told my mother, hey, they don't want me on the football team. I don't need to be at Michigan State. If I'm coming back and going to a junior college, and I'm going to transfer, and we're going to do this thing.
Okay.
So my father at the time he was passing away. He was throat cancer. He actually was a victim of the crack epidemic of the 80s, is what we like to say now, because now you have this, back then it was a war on drugs, but now you have this epidemic of this other, whatever, that's a whole nother situation. But, so I talked to him, voice was cracking. He was like, so your mama says that you are going to come back home. I said, yeah, they don't want me on the football team. I'm going to come home this summer, and this fall I'm going to go to a junior college. I'm going to change. He was like, no. He said, you are going to enroll in your fall classes when you come home this summer, and you'll be back on a plane, and you're going back to Michigan State. And that was the end of the conversation, right?
Done.
And so what he said at the end of it was, you're not there to play football. You're there to bring home a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And at that point, it established the difference between purpose and goals. Mm-hmm. Purpose for being there was to get a degree. One of the goals I wanted to do, right, was to get on the football team.
Of course.
And so with that knowledge, knowing that there was no other option, went back and then tried out again my sophomore year and ended up making the team. But I got to the point where you are when you realize everybody's bigger, everybody's faster, everybody's better.
Yeah.
It made it more fun when I got to that point, but initially I was trying to prove that I belong. So I understand what you went through.
Well, I mean, for me too, because my parents are a lot like what you're telling me is like, it wasn't like an option type thing,
Yeah, right.
You're going to school, I know what you want to do, but this is what you're going to do type
Exactly.
situation. So that leadership role that they took, forced me to do something that maybe I didn't want to do, right? Because I actually was considering maybe going some other place where I could play basketball, right?
Exactly.
But
That's the dream.
But then when they forced me to stay, it was crazy because I didn't make the team. I got redshirted, right? So I got to practice with the team.
Wow.
I didn't actually get to go to the games or anything, but I still got to play with the guys, right? So between my freshman and my sophomore year, I got much better. Obviously, I got.
So they thought you were good enough to be a scout teamer.
Yeah, basically.
You were on a team then.
But I didn't play in the game, so I wasn't on
I
the
didn't
team.
play any games either. But I was on a team.
Yeah.
3-4 years, got a bowl ring, all that kind of
Really?
stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I got better, right? Obviously, and that was the thing, is I got much better. But it taught me, I guess, the concept of you can work toward, like you said, your goals, right, while still doing other things that are necessities.
Yeah.
That maybe you don't want to do, right? But they're things you have to do.
To accomplish purpose,
and so my passion was basketball, but my responsibility was school.
Exactly.
Right?
Same here, yeah.
And so I was able to get better at one thing while I was still doing the other. And I don't know, it was for me, I think it was a really good foundation builder because even though, I always considered myself as an underdog and I was smaller than everybody else, but I don't know, put a desire and a passion to show other people that even though maybe I don't have the same abilities and talents you do, I can still be just as good because I can work just as hard.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how I coach now. That's how I try to teach people is that, work will pay off if you keep working and you're consistent. Because oftentimes talent doesn't work as hard as it should.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's the mentality of a walk-on, which you were, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I don't know how long you stayed on the team, but for
yeah.
at least that year, you were a walk-on basketball player. And I always say walk-ons, we try harder, right? Because we're there around a bunch of scholarship players who are being paid. Well, this was 20-something years higher.
Technically,
they're
they're getting paid.
Yeah, right. Who are being paid to be there, and they keep bringing in more scholarship players who are being paid to be there. And then us as walk-ons, we're paying to go to school.
Yeah.
Not as good as them. Probably won't get the playing time unless an emergency happens. But we're happy to be there, and we're trying to outwork everybody. So, yeah, 100%, I understand that.
No, actually, I think it's funny you say they were paid to be there because
now they are, for real.
now they're really paid to be there.
Right,
Yeah, they can have like deals and all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
But like I think about that. I think that was one of the things like as college football's sports in general, over the last few years, they've been talking about how it's unfair that, college athletes don't get paid and, you're making all this money off their likenesses and stuff like that. And for someone like who was like me, right, I was paying to go to school. I was working a job to go to school.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I was, I was basically living at home and driving almost an hour and a half to go to school.
Wow.
Still having to do practice and all the other stuff. And so it was really hard, like over the last 20, 30 years as they've been making, this issue about paying the athletes and stuff, which I don't care. I mean, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they got paid to go to school. They got a free education. They got food,
housing,
free room and dorm, right?
Yeah,
They were getting clothes. They were getting trips, all kinds of places. So it wasn't the same, right, for all us other guys that were out there having to make good grades. And, so it's kind of hard for me to relate to how unfair it was for them, right?
Agree. I agree.
But I think one of the things is, like, even as life has progressed, there's a lot of things in my life where I've paid to be a part of them, right? So, like, our races we do, right? We go do these races.
Oh, yeah.
We train for them. We pay to go participate in them.
Yep.
And very few of them do you have the ability to make money back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just got back from this event called the High Rocks World Championships.
Okay.
And it was in Nice. Okay. So they do it in a different place every year. So you have to qualify and, like, what is it? 1% maybe?
Like 1.5 or 2% of like around the world athletes end up going
Qualify
to
for
the
this
championship.
event,
Yeah,
right?
those are championships.
And there's only 15, or I guess technically 30 because it's 15 guys, 15 women, who
the top 15.
what they call the Elite 15.
The Elite
They
15.
get paid to go.
Yeah,
Really?
they're invited.
They're invited. They're the top
They're
times.
the scholarship players, right?
They're
Yeah.
the scholarship players. These
The
are, like,
rest
the
of us
best
have to
the
pay
best.
our way to
Yeah,
wherever
we're the
we're
walk-on.
going.
Everybody
Yeah.
else is walk-on, right?
We got to pay to be in the event,
Yeah.
right? But we still all did it.
Yeah, well, speak for yourself. I don't pay for my events.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't have to pay for the World Championships?
No, I did have to pay for that one.
Okay, that's what
All
I
my
thought.
other races, I don't have
Okay.
to.
So,
yes, that one did.
but it's funny because I feel like that's just how my whole life has been.
Yeah. I mean, when you
Pay
look,
to participate.
look, I don't know if you claim it, but when you're a walk-on, that's your whole life is like
It feels that way,
hey,
yeah.
like, look, we try harder. Walk-ons, we try harder. Let me say something about college athletes getting paid, right? So, when you and I are in school, they got scholarships. You're looking at it like scholarship. You got dental insurance. You got all these things paid for.
Yeah.
And my argument initially for the first 8 years of the argument of should you pay athletes was, well, you're not valuing the degree. You're not valuing education.
Yes.
The counter argument is if you look at the value of a scholarship from 1950 something, let's just say the 60s when they started letting black players on the team. The value of a scholarship through now. Scholarship pays for education over years. It's increased, groceries and things have increased, right? But in the end, it's paying for you to be in school.
Right.
And then you look at the value of what the salaries of coaches and administrators have made through now.
Yeah.
And those have increased
Exponentially.
significantly.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
that's where the argument is. It's like, okay, yeah, we bring in all this money to the school. It was fine in the 60s and 70s when everybody was getting paid whatever they're getting paid. But when media started getting in and now contracts are $5 and $7 and $8 million a year, but we're still just getting our school paid for.
Yeah,
Now
everyone else
there's
might
the
be
issue,
doing
right? And so
Right.
that's where the argument comes in. And so when that argument was made to me, I was like, okay, there might be some semblance of something in there, right?
Right.
And I think it's going to a place that I don't know if they're going to be able to control it, but I do like the name, image, and likeness thing that you mentioned. Like, I can go out, and because I am a known commodity, quote, unquote, somebody wants to pay me to hold up their soda brand or something like that.
I mean, I think that's fair.
That's fair,
That's all. I mean,
100%.
that's my likeness, right? I'm
Yep.
putting in this work, so I respect that.
I
I'm
like
cool with
that part, right.
Especially for football and basketball. I don't really care because they're making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But like for like some of those side ancillary sports like track and field,
Olympic
and
sports is
like,
what we call
you know,
them.
like the smaller sports, right? Those guys and those ladies, they work just as hard,
Harder.
if
Track.
not harder, right?
Yeah.
Track is wild, yeah.
To do what they have to do. and they may be on scholarship, but I can guarantee
They're not
getting the same
like what football
benefits.
and-
They don't. And their
Yeah, not
scholarships,
even
a lot of
kind of.
times, Olympic sports scholarships are not full scholarships.
No, they're not.
They have
Oh,
say,
really?
yes.
No.
So, like, for example, and I may be wrong in saying in how I quote this, but like track, you have so many track athletes. Say you have 50 track athletes.
Okay.
Only probably 8 of them are on full scholarship.
Yeah.
That.
They probably only have 15 full scholarships to give to the whole track team. So what they do is split it up. They pay for someone's books. They pay for someone's housing and that kind of thing. So yeah, you're right, 100%. Olympic sports. There's a reason for it that the ADs will tell you, the athletic directors, is because
Is it because they're not as like commercially sexy
bringing
sports?
in
They don't make as much money.
revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue stream.
Football and men's basketball and women's basketball and volleyball are coming up.
Yeah.
But they bring in all the revenue. I mean, in the end, think about it. 6 to 7 times a year on one day of the week, you might have between 10 and 40 or 50,000, depending on Texas A&M, 100 and some thousand people in the stands buying a ticket, spending money.
true.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
7
And then-
times a
They
year.
bring in-
How
I
many
get it.
million people watching on TV?
Exactly.
right?
That makes sense.
That's
yeah.
more than any other thing that happens on
That's
campus.
true.
You see what I mean? And so I mean, they bring the revenue in, right?
Yeah. So
It's crazy.
I mean, I do think that like this is an Olympic year, right? So I love watching track and field. I've always loved track and field. I've always loved gymnastics. But one thing you notice is that this year, I think it was. I want to say it was the World Championships in Paris, and the stadium was full.
Yeah.
Like it was packed out.
100%.
Like it was stacked and packed. But all those guys were pros, right? And there were some college athletes that were there,
That are
but
competing.
it wasn't a ton, right? Most of them were all like pro track and field athletes, and they've been out of college for a few years. So, those college athletes that are out there like running and doing their thing, when they get out, if they're not able to become a professional runner, then they're going to try to keep going. They're going to try to keep competing and things of that nature. And there are plenty of them that are unsponsored athletes.
Yep.
That is a very expensive sport to try to go out and do on your own,
I agree.
right? And it's not because shoes are expensive, but it's because you got to train, you got to fly to places to go do these events, these track events,
Entrance
and everything.
fees, all
the
those
entrance fees to
Yeah.
get into them. There's no guarantee you're going to make any money. So the only way you can earn a living is if you become sponsored,
yeah.
right? So I think it probably is a little easier now with social media and all that stuff, because if you can get a good social media following,
Yeah, then they wanna sponsor you.
then it's a
Yeah.
little easy. You could even get small sponsors like On Cloud or Tracksmith, I think, is one. They have some kind of program for unsponsored athletes, and there's a couple other twos, but I think it's a little more open for those kind of athletes. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you're working hard but you're not great at like marketing,
Yeah.
you're probably not gonna
Yeah.
you're not gonna make it.
If you're not out
Thanks for
there
you.
selling yourself, right?
Yeah, you don't know how to do that, right?
Some people know how to do it, and I've never known how to do that.
Yeah.
To speak about yourself, and that's why I started interviewing people.
Okay.
Because I wanted to know how to
Yeah.
talk about myself, but I didn't. And so what I figured was, because I know how to ask questions, let me just get somebody who has a big name or some of these leaders in college athletics, and let me be the person interviewing. So then people watching get to know me a little bit as the
Sure,
person
sure.
interviewing,
There you go.
but the focus is on them kind of
Yeah.
situation. So
So what are some of the what are some of maybe the favorites, if you have any favorites, some of the people you've talked to and some of the things that they've talked about or stood out to you? How about that?
yeah, so there's a few people who I like to talk to multiple times.
Okay.
One of them, her name is Chrissy Waywalk. She's the athletics director at University of Delaware.
Okay.
Another one is Glenn Caruso. He's the head football coach of University of St. Thomas, which is in Minnesota. They were Division III non-scholarship, and they just moved up to NCAA Division I.
Okay.
Still non-scholarship, and he's a winner and those kind of things.
That's tough, man, to do non-scholarship and be a winner.
And still be a winner, right?
Wow,
and
that's
then
good coaching.
the last one, and he's no longer coaching, but his name was David Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
His name is David Shaw. He was the head football coach at Stanford. And I really like talking to them because of the culture thing, the organizational leadership thing. For example, Chrissy Waywalk, one of our conversations, she said everything when she was at Delaware, as she's at Delaware, she thought was going well.
Mm-hmm.
The people who reported to her reported good numbers, felt like you're doing good, sports are doing good, you're bringing in revenue, you're raising funds, and everything seems like it's going well. But then when she did an evaluation of the entire department, she found out the people under the mid-level managers, there was a turnover, high turnover. People
Okay.
were coming in and going. People were miserable because the people in the mid-level didn't necessarily know how to be leaders.
Okay.
And so you get these people who come in and they may be successful at whatever job they're doing, and then somebody leaves, you move them up to middle manager or some type of leader position, and they don't know how to lead people.
Gotcha.
And now the people they're leading are miserable, and people don't leave institutions, they leave people, right? And so now you got a lot of turnover. So when she realized that, she thought she was doing a good job, but realized she wasn't doing a good job. So what she started doing was constantly evaluating and figuring out how to, train the mid-level management so they can be good leaders, but also providing professional development opportunities for the younger folks and entry-level folks that they felt like they were valued within the organization. So every time we talk, it's a conversation about those kind of things, and that interests me a lot.
So you mentioned that. So we do, I think training is a very important thing. Like, I mean, and not just like training an athlete, right? But training a person to be a leader, right? So my dad used to teach me, and our pastor here, I call him my dad, he basically adopted me, but he always talks about you're basically always trying to train your replacement, right? So you're working on mentoring or discipling someone below you to replace you, right? And that's how you move up. And so if you're constantly teaching the level below you, right, you're constantly bringing people up. Everybody should constantly be getting better and
100%, I agree with that.
being promoted, right, or be able to be promoted. And so that's a big thing that I believe in, is that you've got to be able to disciple people, and you're basically trying to replicate yourself. And that is really hard to do, because not everybody. It's hard to get everybody to buy in to your philosophy or to what you want to do, right? And I mean, in every business that you have, you're only as strong as your people, right? And if you can't get good people, then you can't grow, you can't get any better, right? And so it's the same thing for a team. You know, I love, BC Fitness is our team, our gym, so it's a lot like F45 in that, we have all types of people that come, and some really buy in and are part of the team, and some just come and work out, right? But we're really about community and building people up. And so one of the things that I notice, and this is not a knock on anybody.
Why do you look at me when you say that?
Well, I don't.
Immediately looks at me when he says it. So
because I'm trying to engage everybody and not just look at Ty. I'm trying to look at everybody. I gave him some eye contact. I gave you some eye contact.
He appreciates your opinion. So when he's about to give this opinion, he wants to look at you.
There you go. Right. But we have a lot of older, more mature people. Okay. Which is awesome, because they're all still getting better, right? And the theory is that you don't get better as you get older. Right, so as your body matures, you kind of hit that, you get over the hill, right, and you don't get any better, right? There's just no way of getting better, which is not scientifically actually true. So it just depends on what you're doing. And so, like, when your youngest person is middle-aged, right? How's that a jerk?
You're like, when your youngest person is middle-aged,
right? But
he's technically our youngest person.
He doesn't come to anything we do.
That's true. You don't. Never mind.
So I can't talk
I am
to
one of our
him,
youngest people,
right?
yes.
I sent him a thing the other day, and it was like the average age is like 76 or something like that, or 75, right? So when you're like in your mid-30s, you're middle-aged, right? So I sent it to her in the group, right? Because she's in her mid-30s.
He likes to remind me that I'm not the 20-year-old I like to think I am.
She thinks, she seems to think she's still 25. I'm like,
mentality is good, though, right?
Thank you. I have the youth and the spirit of a 20-year-old, but some of the smarts of a woman in her 30s.
Okay.
Some.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Okay.
But, like, it's just funny because, like, we need some young meat.
Yeah, we do.
Because, like, we got all these old people.
do the people, the veterans, the experienced people, do they believe that they are over the hill?
No, they're not over the hill. They're all, like...
That's what I mean. Like, do they believe that theory that as you get old, things get worse?
No, they don't. And I think it's because of how we
you train them,
and how we talk,
which is excellent,
and seeing themselves improve, I think helps too, right?
I think we do have some people who initially come in, and that's like a fear, like that the age is going to prevent them from getting better. But I think being in the community, and we have so many people all over the board in terms of age, and I think having that is really what motivates people. Like, oh, well, we have a guy who's 76 who's been through like a bicep surgery, and he's done like multiple triathlons, and people see him and they're like, oh, well, if he can do it at like 70. Then I can get started. And so I think having like all these different people kind of come represent and be pillars in the community really does help to fight that cliche.
Yeah, but I think what like, so my thing is that my goal now is to try to get some of these like college age kids and students, and maybe even some older high schoolers, right, and some like kind of mid-20s and stuff, so that some of these people who have been successful kind of in the older years can start teaching them. Because one thing that I learned was that you learn more when you're trying to teach. Right? That's true. You get a lot out of discipling someone else, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, there's certain levels where you reach where you probably aren't going to get any better or learn anything else until you start teaching somebody else, right?
100%.
So that's kind of one of the things I would love to do is start getting more of the younger crowd in so that my older crowd, the more mature people can get a little bit better and then start pouring into them, right? And so now it's a cycle and we're growing and we are maturing and promoting and bringing up, right?
How many, I'm going to ask a couple business questions, right?
Okay.
How many, the older crowd that comes, the people that come, do they live around here?
Yeah.
Most of them all live in this area.
Some, I mean, there are some that drive from a good distance, but most of them are in the area.
Like
and then, and so are there younger folks that live around here too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, so here's the deal. So Houston is a huge city, right?
Massive
Houston's
city.
humongous city. I mean, this is, kind of the Champions area is what this is kind of called. There's like 1 million people that live in the Champions area. It's like it's like a
dense
5-mile radius.
Right.
Yeah, there's a college like down the street.
Yeah, so there's like a
college.
college down the street. I can't even tell you how many high schools there are around here,
there's a
right?
lot of high schools in the
So, I mean, it's the suburbs,
Yeah.
technically, right? So traditionally, suburbs are more established, older, families, what have you. It's not like being in Midtown where everybody's like 25 and 30, right? Everybody's got little kids, right?
How are you trying to bring in the younger folks?
So that's what I was going to say. I feel like sometimes just by the younger kids I see, especially when it comes like specifically younger guys, like they want the TikTok like heavy weight workouts that make them feel like they're big and they're intimidating, like very alpha. And that's not how we really train. We're not training like massive weight. We're not.
It's a mind shift thing for sure.
It's a mind
Really?
shift. We're teaching you how to like be healthy for the long
For
haul,
long,
not
yep.
for like a sexy TikTok video. Like we're not teaching you to boast.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, so our thing is, right, we sign off the show, and if you're in the gym, you'll see it on the walls. Like, if you can change your mind, you can change your life, right? And so, I remember you remember what it was like being a teenager, going to college, right?
Yep.
I mean, your concept, or at least my concept of fitness and exercise was to get abs or to have biceps. Yeah. And all I knew to do in the gym was what our coaches had us doing, right? I didn't know anything other than that. And if somebody had come into me and told me, if you want to run faster, you need to run slow and you need to build volume, or if they'd said you need to do some sort of progressive overload or used words like that, I'd have been like, you know what you're talking about. I need to go hard all the time in the gym, right? I need to be bench pressing and squatting. So, like, educating people, I think, is very important because I feel like, and I think it's not as bad as it used to be. Like when I was growing up, I mean, I think there are better coaches at the high school level than probably there's ever been before.
Yeah,
they have more knowledge, but there's still that kind of bro science that's happening, right? Yeah. And so I think part of it is just educating them that because of where they're at physically, they could go so much further if they started doing the right things and the smart things and are willing to learn from other people that have done it, right? So that's kind of my goal, is like getting involved with some of the younger crowds. And, we have, a track workout we do on Sundays, and we do it at the high school. And so, there's a friend of mine he's a wrestling coach. So he's
brought his kids.
Yeah, he coaches like high school wrestlers.
Oh, really?
So I've talked to him. He brings his people out.
Most of these girls are more consistent with coming. Got some of the girls who come in, and they're like actually curious.
State champions too.
Yeah, and they want to learn, and they want to like keep up with the adults. And all
the
that.
ladies are, and that's the thing. Actually,
they're more willing to learn.
All women, I
James
respect
is
them.
always surrounded by women.
Yeah, 90% of our people are women.
Yeah.
Women, I feel like, they're more curious and they're more willing to try something new, whereas like the guys are a lot more. They're too proud.
Yeah, with guys, it has to be the right person telling them.
It does. Yeah. It does. And it's almost like you have to prove to them that you're better than them.
The credibility has to come in.
You got to get that credibility, right? And I'm like, well, if you don't come so I can dominate you, how you want to
I was going to say on the dominating, even like some of our community members that we have tried bringing like their kids, or like maybe like one of our friends, she brought her son around, and he's like in his 20s. And, he came in, I don't know what he expected, but he did not stay around for long, because I think
I think he got intimidated.
I think he got very
got his
intimidated
feelings
by
hurt.
the group of like 30-year-olds and old people who were like smashing his spirit into the floor.
Yeah.
So, but we tried to be very.
What are the elements of
our training?
No, what are the elements of community for this BC
Fitness?
What are the elements of community for BC Fitness that make it community?
Well, the biggest part is that we're lifting each other up, right? So, one of the biggest reasons we've been gone, the last few weeks is because, Rocky had his mom passed away, and so, that's tough, man.
Yeah.
You lose a family member, somebody that close especially. And, one of the big things for me was, making sure that we supported him as much as we could, whatever that looked like, And so it wasn't just me, but it was her. It was, a lot of people in the gym lifting one another up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes less about exercise and more about
This
relationship.
Yeah.
And because here's what it comes down to. We talk about this at church. Like, you can't just feed the physical man, right? You've got to feed the mental, the spiritual. There's so much that makes up who we
100%.
are, And so if it's not all being addressed and taken care of and being fed, well, if you're emotionally unstable, it'll affect you physically, right? If you're physically unhealthy, it'll affect you mentally, right? If your spirit life is all jacked up, it's going to affect everything.
Yeah.
And so it's important to make sure you're feeding that all. So the biggest portion of our community is making sure that, starting with the concept of changing your mind, is that we feed the whole man. And
Right. So with those elements for the 20-year-old that showed up, are you selling those elements of the community when you try to get people to come, the younger people here? Or second, the follow-up to that is, do you know what that demographic is looking for?
So
You know what I mean?
I think that's actually think that's a really interesting question. I don't know. I think that it's kind of a hard one because we don't have a lot of young people they can they can't relate to too many people who are already part of the gym. So you have a lot of kind of stemming off what James said. I think our community really provides more than just you come to a gym, you work out, you leave. It's a very big family aspect,
100%.
and everyone's there for one another inside and outside
Yep.
of the space. But I do think for maybe someone in their 20s, they don't feel like they actually immediately relate to somebody because of the gap in age, and this person doesn't get me on my own level because they're so much past this. So I think that can be a little bit tough, but I don't know. I think we offer so many different personality types that everyone's always...
I feel it comes down to more
Yeah.
kind of like when we were talking about when we got to college, right?
Yeah.
We tried out for the team. It comes down between what it is that we desire or we think we want and
Yeah.
what we actually need. And let's be honest, without trying to insult people that are younger, when you're 21 years old, you don't know what you want. Well, you know what you want, but you don't know what you need, right? Your brain's not even fully developed. You're 25 years old, right? So you make a lot of dumb choices, and you do things that maybe, aren't the best thing for you. And so, whereas what we're providing and what we're, advertising when we are working with people
Is what people need.
is what they need,
Yeah.
but they may see it and not realize it's what they...
Right.
what
So
they
if we understand that, if we have the awareness that the
Yeah.
demographic we're going after does not understand what they need,
Yeah.
how do we
How do you switch
give them that?
sell them what they want so they
right.
can come in and get what they need, right?
So that is the question, right?
Yeah.
That's the
That's
trick,
the-
and that's
that's
the
the big
thing.
one.
That's the thing that I've pondered, and I think some of that honestly has to do more with, so Rocky's a perfect example, right? So he and I have known
Rocky.
each other for a while, right? And he's still a young gun, and we've had a very close mentor-mentee friend relationship, right? Little brother, big brother kind of thing over the last 10 years or so, right? And we've had that same dynamic where I'm trying to give him what he needs, right? But it's not what he wants, right? And he's trying to establish himself and who he is and what he thinks is right and all that good stuff, right? And he's not able to benefit from my experience that I've made the same mistake that he's about to make, right? And I'm trying to teach him, don't do what I did, right? Type thing, right? And so I think it's people like him, right, that have already gone through it, that have realized, that are closer, so the gap is not as great, that they can relate more to him. So there's a couple of young guys that he works with, right? And they're, how old is B?
20 and 18.
18 or so, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, it's funny. It's so funny to watch the three of them interact. It's so funny. But they look up to him.
Yeah.
I really do believe they'll never probably say that, but you can tell they look up to him. And if he says it, honestly, I feel like it's gospel to them, right?
Credibility, right? It's guys.
That's exactly it. So I think it's having the right, people like him.
The right ambassadors. Right
Exactly.
people. Yeah.
That can relate closer to them to bring them in. So then, in other words, you are providing use an ambassador. You're providing these stop gaps, right? So that you can transition people to where it is they need to go, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge is more people like Lauren and Rocky that are kind of bridging that gap. And so it's the middle management is what it is, right?
Yeah,
so it's the middle management.
Teach them how to be leaders, right?
Teaching the middle management how to be leaders. And that sometimes is what the struggle is, right? Is because you can see it, right? You can see the potential. You can see, or at least you feel like you can see the potential, but it's trying to convince and teach and lead that, not only is it potential, but please have the desire to fulfill the But does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that create and maintain an environment people want to be a part of, right? If you're middle management, you're ambassadors, right? Want to be a part of the environment, and you teach them how to basically tell the story of the environment, how it benefits them, and how it could benefit others. Now you have people who are speaking the language, right? A culture begins when everybody starts speaking the same language. Exactly right. So now you have somebody who go out and speak the language. And I've heard Rocky in one of the episodes. I listened to part of it, or maybe it was the full one I listened to, and he was talking about a kid. You told him something to do, and he went out, did it his own way, and then came back and said, "I should listen to you, Rocky." Right? Rocky, you can relate to that, right? Because I heard you on that same episode. You were like, probably exactly how I was, but that the kids want to stick around me, and so you think about having an ambassador who speaks the language that can talk to the younger folks, and that's really how you have to do it. Another point, I've learned recently that successful business is started with a solution to a problem, right, as opposed to just a great idea, right. And so is the solution you're providing, like you mentioned, it's community and long-term health, but is the problem that younger folks, that's not the problem they want a solution for.
No,
so you
because they're not thinking long-term.
You got to think about what is the solution for a problem, because we know what they need. I mean, all of us, when we were, I don't know about you, when I was younger, I wasn't a knucklehead, but I was just bad enough. Enough to where if it was about to get my mother, then I stopped, right? You know what I mean?
That sounds about right.
To reach the end.
Right. My litmus test was don't disappoint my mom. So anything that I did, if I felt like this would get back to her, okay, I'm going to get right to the edge, and then I'm going to stop, right? But to your point, like, you got to figure out what they need and how can you communicate with them and get them here by what they want and give them what they need. So
with some of the, the different ADs and things that you've talked to, or even coaches or leaders, right? Yep. Like, what are some of, because they're only dealing with young people. Now, it's a little different because they are offering something that they want, an education, the opportunity to play, maybe even
all those things,
go further, right? Learn more. So what are some of the things that they utilize to maybe get them to buy into their culture? Because every school is different.
Every school is different. So one of my favorite interviews, and I didn't name this person earlier, is Joe Castiglione. He's the VP of Intercollegiate Athletics at University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
And over his 20-some-odd years there, so many people have went off and became directors of athletics, conference commissioners, and other leadership roles.
Okay.
And so my thought process on that is a leader should ask themselves, are you leading for your own success, or are you leading to develop other leaders, right? And you can say yes to both of them, right?
Sure, yeah.
And so what he does is, with intent, you do the things necessary so that the people you work with understand how to be a leader and feel like they are getting more than they feel like they're doing more than trading time for a paycheck.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So they come to work and they know that me working here, I'm going to take care of my responsibilities, but I am also going to learn how to mentor someone else. I am also going to learn what this person does because that job looks interesting to me, so I can learn how the whole thing works instead of just in this silo focusing on my one job.
Sure.
Type of thing. So what they do, again, is create that environment. And they do more than with student athletes, right? So an athletic director has a staff. They have their deputy athletic directors, their senior associate athletic directors. You got the associate athletic directors, the assistant athletic directors. You got the directors. You got the assistant something of something. You got the graduate assistants. And then you have all the coaches, right? And then the coaches, each coach, like, for example, a football team may have 10 full-time coaches and a number of graduate assistants and analysts. And then you got 110 football players. And then you got the soccer team. Then you got all this. And then they have to deal with donors and fundraisers. They report to the president, so they got to deal with the cabinet. And you know what I mean? So there's so many people.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
My brain just
There's so many people that they deal with as an athletic director, or anybody really in a leadership position, that you hope that they're doing the things that are necessary so that the people who are working with them in the mid-level management buy into the culture, are speaking the language, and are ambassador for the institution, but also for that leader. For when a position comes up, you think somebody who's in the position will reach out to somebody they know, hey, you would love to work here, working for this person, come out and be a part of this organization, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they do. And Joe Castiglione, he's an example of that, somebody who has developed a whole bunch of other leaders, I guess, if that answered the question you asked.
No, it does. So let me ask this then. So, one of the things that I found is, knowledge is power. The more you know, usually, right? The more you can teach people, and then, you can grow them or what have you. But do you find that is the people that are more astute at, like, let's say, use football as an example. They're more astute at the game of football that are more successful, or the people who are more astute at leading?
At people.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like people, like teaching people and bringing people up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I worked at American Football Coaches Association for almost 15 years.
Okay.
I thought going into it I was in love with the X's and O's, but I realized that I'm in love with the leadership aspect of it. And so while you do have some coaches who are heavy X's and O's, and they are successful at it, you have some coaches who are heavy leadership, and they are successful at it. Every once in a while, you have a coach that's excellent at both, and they are Nick Saban at University of Alabama, right?
Right.
Psychology guy, definitely knows X's and O's, definitely understands leadership, and just understands the aspect of a whole institution and making sure everybody understands what their job is and how they're going to be evaluated at that job. It depends on the person, because in order to be, well, like we just mentioned, if somebody gets in a mid-level management role and they don't know how to be a leader, after a while, that's going to blow up in the face of the actual leader. So a head coach, if he's he or she, whatever sport, is a hard X's and O's person, and they've been good at what they do throughout their career, they get to this leadership level, at some point they're either going to learn how to be the leader, or it's going to blow up in their face, or surround themselves with other people who can advise them how to handle when the kids start acting up, or how to handle when the president comes down and talk, or the athletic director. So I think the range is big, but the learning leadership is probably one of the best things. One of the biggest things, because it comes down to people, right?
Yeah.
And you can't X's and O people to death. You got to lead people.
What's the difference between a manager and a leader?
I've heard this debate for years. Leaders lead people, and managers manage things and projects, and this is what people say, and I've heard that buzz definition for a while. I don't know if I'm necessarily clear on the difference there. I can give you what I believe leadership is. I don't know if I can give you what I believe management is, but I do think it would probably go back to that definition. Manager manages projects and things, and leaders lead people, I guess. So.
Honestly, I think, like for leadership in general, right? You're inspiring people, you're bringing people up, you're teaching them, right? And managing, people don't like managing, I feel like, because managing is more in the details, and it's more in the constant communication, and it's
the operations of something.
It is. Yeah. It's constantly watching the process and the management. And so I think, in my opinion, is that there are people who I think are great inspirational leaders, right? They can be out in front and they can tell you, this is how you get here. Yep. Hey, come with me. Let's get excited. Let's do this. But I think those type of leaders tend to lose a lot of people on the way up, because people don't know how to get there.
Yeah, what's
right?
the action item behind
they can't get the action plans, right? Yeah. What's how do I go from A to Z, right? Whereas like someone who has the ability to actually manage as well, they can mentor and teach them and show them, and they can realize, okay, this person knows how to get to B, but they have no idea where F is, right? If I can just get them to F, then they can make it to M, right? And so the only way that happens, I believe, is by being able to actually manage them.
Right.
And so the only difference is like a really good like leader can take people to new places, but they're going to have a lot of attrition. They're going to have a lot of fall off.
Right. Knows how to put the operations in place so that they can explain what people do.
Exactly. Right. So, so I don't know. I don't like anybody to be left behind, honestly. Like I want everybody to go, right? I want everybody to be lifted up. But the realistic thing about it is that's never going to happen, right? Because not everybody's going to buy in, not everybody's going to believe.
Well, the last episode,
some people are not going to work.
The episode I watched was you talking about a guy that just couldn't get it right?
Yeah.
And so okay. if you've ever listened to Bill Belichick, he was the head coach of the Patriots, and they said he had one sign up in his locker room, and it was "Do your job."
Yep.
And so after I played for Nick Saban at Michigan State.
Okay.
And after working for the Coaches Association, you heard him speak and you heard a number of them speak, and I expounded on that. What Nick Saban and Bill Belichick did well was explain what your job was, explain how you're going to be evaluated at your job, and why your job was important to the organization.
Okay.
Now, after you do that, then people can choose to do, and this is my opinion, they choose to do one of four things: do their job, excel at their job, right? Choose not to do the job, or realize they don't have the capacity to
do the job,
right?
yeah.
And so in that story you mentioned a couple episodes ago, this guy knew what his job was. You explained to him and to everybody else multiple times and why it was important for the organization. The issue what was missing in that organization was how you were going to be evaluated at the job. And there was really, from my perspective, listening to it, there was no apparatus for true evaluation, and so he felt like he can get away with a lot. He chose not to do the job a lot and got away with it, and that led to your frustration, right?
Yep.
And so in terms of leading and managing people, that's when you have to make the decision: do you really want to be a part of the organization, or don't you? Right. And here are the things necessary to make the organization successful. I found that very significant, that story, right? Because there was a whole lot of things inside of it that were important. Even if you got somebody who's a coach who kind of believes that everything he says is the right way to do things, even in that story, you can see where the leadership and the management kind of blend together to your point that you're making, right?
And for me, I was much younger then, and for the most part, I was new to that position, right? So I was a new, I was the president of the company,
You mentioned
right?
that, yeah.
But I'd been the president of the company for like 6 months, right? And I had a very I don't want to say overbearing, but very micromanaging style owner, right? And so even though he had put me in this position, he'd put me in the position with very limited power and with a box to work within.
No authority.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So it made it very challenging. So I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to do things his way, but then I also have my own way of doing things.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the process of, every personality is different and not everybody learns and it can be managed the same way or can be led the same way, And then on top of that, you've got your own personality of like, hey, man, I said this, right? So I don't know what it was like in your house, but if my parents, if my dad or my mother said, go do this, that was kind of the end of it, right?
Yeah.
You don't question authority. You don't, ask why. I mean, you could if you wanted to die, you know what I'm saying? If you wanted life to be shortened for you, right?
We didn't ask why. Just when my mother said it would take us a little while to do it. When my father said it, though, it was done immediately.
Oh, you don't question Dad because Dad meant business.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was no warnings. There was no
If
I'm going to talk to your dad about it. It was over with, right?
Over with. That's it.
So that was a big challenge. And it was for me, honestly, I thought if it was actually looking back at it. It was a good learning experience, right? Because I think it's very important that when you start things, you always set expectations and you make them very clear, right? And just what the description you just gave, right? Giving clear descriptions of the expectation, the job duties, and how you'll be evaluated, and I think even more so, like how you'll be rewarded, right?
Exactly.
What's going to be the overall benefit for you of doing this, right? And when you do that, then I think you take away all excuses.
You do.
Right? And then you can truly find out, does this person have what it takes?
Do they want to do the job?
Right.
Are they going to excel at the job?
Do they have the capacity?
Do they have the capacity?
And
100%.
I think for me, and a lot of this I think just comes back to kind of my belief in Jesus Christ is that I don't want anybody to get left behind, right? And okay, you may not have the capacity to do this, right? Well, let me find where your capacity is. Like, let me find the place for you to fit in. Because I think everybody has a place, right? And you can excel at something, right? So maybe the thing that I'm trying to force you to do, or I'm trying to put you in, or maybe the thing you think you want to do, maybe that's not where you need to be,
that's not what it is,
right? And we need to figure out where that is. And so I think that's where having the ability to not only be a good leader but also a good manager comes into place, is because then as you're managing them, as you're watching them and you're evaluating consistently, you can figure out, okay, this isn't your place.
Yeah.
But there is a place for you. Let's figure it
I
out,
agree
right?
with that. I got a question for the group. Wait, Rocky, did you go to the High Rocks thing in Nice, you said?
No, he didn't
no.
go.
Low blow.
Right. So, yeah. But so you two went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Men's
go.
doubles, women's doubles.
So we go as as a walk-on, quote unquote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at some point as a walk-on, I'm gonna make the analogy to when I played. You come to the realization that everybody's better here, but I do like participating, right? So I'm gonna pay the money to go, and I'm gonna continue participating. And once I got to that realization, everything became fun. They're all better than me. They learn football better. They're bigger. I was one of the smallest guys on the team, actually. But when I realized that everybody was bigger and better, then it became more fun to me. I'm a scout team player. I'm gonna go. How does that translate to going and knowing that there are these 15 elite men, 15 elite women, and we're coming in as walk-ons paying to be here? Like, is the joy in participating and finishing, or where's the joy?
Oh, you're going to get two very different answers. You can go first.
Well, number one, I guess some of it's kind of a lot like the Olympics, right? It's a lot like a lot of other sporting events like Ironman, where there's a little bit of separation, right? So in other words, like you have your pros, you have the elite 15 or what have you. They're paid athletes. That's what they do for a living. And then you have like the age groupers, right? And so they're they're by age or what have you. And so fortunately, for us, could I go out and compete with the pros? Yes. Would I win?
100%.
No. Right? Could I be competitive? Yes. Right? But I'm never winning. I'm not going to podium because I'm a walk-on. Right? And I'm also 45 years old. Right? And they're like 26 and 30, right? And they're like 6'2", and I'm 5'10", right? All kinds of excuses. But the great thing is with the whole concept of age grouping is that you can be competitive, you can continue to get better, and you can also enjoy it, right? So
enjoy smoking the other 45-year-olds.
That's exactly right. Because then you can also realize that, when I was 30 years old, I didn't have the education and the understanding of fitness and things, and you were better than me. So that meant you were more talented than I was. Now I've learned and I've worked harder than you and I've improved past you because I've gotten better, right? So, that it's a lot more fun that way. But then also there's like a confidence boost in that to an extent. So it makes it more enjoyable. And so, for me this year was a little bit different in that, I went into it not trying to win the world championship, right? I went to it trying to just do the best performance I could.
Why?
I had a new partner that that I had never raced with before. And so, I didn't want to set this expectation on him so high that he couldn't enjoy it as well, right?
Makes sense.
And so we went into it. This was our goal, which I knew at that time, trying to match that time, we weren't even in the ballpark of trying to win, right? But it was still a good time. It was very competitive. It was very strong. And so if we could do that, I was more than satisfied, right? And so we were able to do it, so we both had a great time. I think he got a lot of fitness from it, right? It helped push him, and I think his desires to try to get better have increased as well. I was able to go and compete, which is what I really wanted to do. I got to go to France and Europe and Italy and everything else, which is something else I've always wanted to do. And then I got to be around and see, how the sport is evolving, and see a lot of other athletes and see how they're training and see how that training is benefiting them. So it was a learning experience as well. So for me, 100%, it was very successful, even though the ultimate goal of becoming the world champion of the 40-year-old, the 40 to 45-year-old age group wasn't achieved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you? What
So I am a very anxious performer, unfortunately. So for me, I very much crack under pressure, I guess.
Really?
I don't know, Coach. What do you think? Crack under pressure?
I would say crack under pressure. I would say you put too much emphasis on the overall performance, and that can hinder your performance because you're not loose.
I will hold myself
you're very
back
nervous.
I'm so afraid of the potential of completely blowing out.
So like
that's bad.
being able to relax.
In football, you're focused on the scoreboard instead of the play.
I'm focused on the scoreboard. So for me, like as soon as I get there, like I'm excited to be there. I'm just like the fact that I've been doing this sport for 3 years now, and I finally made it to the championships was like dream come true. But as soon as I walk in the room, I'm like, oh, I'm like a lot smaller than some of these other women coming forward. Like these chicks look like they could throw me over their shoulders like I'm a sack of flour.
Which is so funny because it's not actually true.
But it's what it feels
She's
like when
just
I walk
as
in.
big and just as tall.
It's just the
and
narrative
just as
she's
athletic.
telling. The narrative she's telling herself,
Yeah,
right?
it's the
Taller
narrative
than
she's
most of them.
putting on herself.
Yeah.
So that's just self-doubt.
Yeah,
It's a
it
lot
was
of self.
nice.
And that's something I've always struggled with. My partner, I love my partner to death. We have a great relationship. We work, I think, very well together. But I also have this massive pressure to always make sure I deliver for my partner. And she came into this race kind of nervous, and she dominated, and I felt like I was just trying to hold on for dear life. So I think for me, what I got out of it was I learned a lot about myself, and I kind of learned a lot about what I like really want to push past, some things I want to work on, the anxiety being a big part of it, and like not letting the fear and the lack of confidence like destroy me at the beginning. So I think I'm always just challenging myself to get better, but then I'm working on that, like getting past the wall.
What have you put in place to work on the things you said you're working on?
I say an affirmation to myself in the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly just
I'll quote Nick Saban, trust the process.
yeah,
right?
I think honestly it's just like keep putting the work in, and like and just like realizing it's gonna start getting to the point. We've had this conversation, like I've gotten to a level now where the gains are going to be smaller and it's going to hurt that much more to get there. So I'm just now getting to this point where like it's going to really hurt to keep getting better, and you've got to be okay with that. So just push through it and know that something good will come out of it, whether it's like a lesson or a podium or I get faster, or one or the other.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really try to encourage my athletes, and sometimes it sticks. And I think still, I mean, I'm learning to communicate, right? I mean, that's constantly a process that you have to be
100%.
able to do, right? Because not everybody communicates the same, right? Not everybody receives information the same way. And so where one person I may be able to just blow their mind with some sort of inspirational thing, another person, they just go right over their head, right? And so I'm still trying to learn how to communicate. And so one of the things that I always try to communicate is the end result in an event, a race, right, or a game, right? If we're talking football or basketball or whatever. What is the most important thing? Is it to win? Is it to get a PR? Is it to, show that you're the best? Or is it being better than you were before, right? Is it improvement, right? Is it constant progression, right? For me, in my opinion, I believe progression is the most important thing. And even if you lose, how did you progress? What can you learn from it so that you can go back and you can change how you train or change how you do something so that next time you can progress, right? And so, I believe I've tested this before and in my own personal life, right? So I'm a big proponent in leading by example, right? Not just, don't just say it, do it, right? Yeah. One of the things that aggravates me, and I don't know how many times I've told this story, but like trainers and coaches that like tell somebody to do something that they can't do.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you've heard the, people who can't do teach. Yeah. I don't believe that.
Okay.
All right. I don't believe in that at all, right? I believe you need to have an understanding of how to do it. Maybe you don't have the physical capability to be the best at it, but you got to know how to do it, right? And you've got to be willing to put in the work, right? And so most of the things that I try to coach people on is based off of like how I've coached myself and taught myself and been able to do it, right? And so as I'm coaching people, one of the things that I have learned more than anything else is that if I keep progressing, eventually I'm going to get there, right? So if I have a goal time, if I know that my goal time is we'll use High Rock for an example, to be under an hour for a High Rocks event, right? Which is a good time, right? Well, I know the progression to get there, right? And if each moment or each race or each training block or training cycle, I get closer and closer to that. Well, if I end up hitting that hour, well, I know that since that was my goal, I go and I look at an event, well, the average winning time is higher than that. So I know that puts me on the podium, right? That makes me a winner. So the closer I'm getting to that gets me to another goal. So it's like creating SMART goals, right? Where you're putting yourself in a position to eventually get there. So then my ultimate prize is not getting a win. My ultimate prize is, am I getting better?
So then when you compete, what is your mentality going in?
So my mentality is I'm racing myself.
Do what I've done.
I do what I've done. I practice. I never do anything in a race or an event that I haven't done in practice.
Right.
And so I've done it so much in practice that I've built my confidence to a level that I know in an event I can do it. And as long as I do what I've been doing, I should get this result. And so that gives me confidence.
So it's almost like the event is not anything different than what you've been doing.
Exactly.
So trust the process, right? That sounds like the mentality,
so
right?
He's great at that, and that's what I'm trying to learn. And watching James in a race, it is like watching a machine, like someone who has put it to practice and he's honestly just going. He's doing what he's done. It's nothing new. You don't ever see a look of like, oh crap, from something.
Sometimes. There's been a couple times.
There's a couple. But they're pretty subtle in their few farmers.
That solo race got me.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that was a different experience. But, I mean, it is like watching someone who you can tell, like, they've done this. Like, they know what to expect for the most part. And even though the race never changes, I feel like every time I go out there, every time you're going to see, like, a whole new range of facial expressions and emotions come out, and they're all very stressful. Looking.
Well, I think part of that, right, and that's one of the things that we've talked about before,
Yeah.
is like for me, the training itself has become much more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
So like the races are a reward for all the hard work I put in,
Yeah.
right?
That's a good mentality
That's
right
a
there.
great
That's
mentality.
right.
Yeah.
And so like with like football,
Now you get to put it
basketball, all those things, to me, the work you put in throughout the week, right? The game's just the fun part.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. The game's the fun part. If you win, that's just like another icing on the on the cake, right? And so like for a lot of the people that I've coached, right, trying to and that's where the mind shift comes in, is if you'll shift the mindset where you don't put such importance on the outcome of the event and more so on putting the work in during training, and if you'll do that and be consistent, then the event can be more fun. You can be more relaxed, which automatically helps you perform much better,
yeah,
right? And so I think for her, one of the biggest struggles has been because of all the things she has going on, and some of like the organizational skills and things like that. She hasn't been able to be as consistent in her training,
Yeah.
so she hasn't built the confidence
I get
that's
that.
needed for the race. And so she goes in and she's like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
I missed Wednesday 3 weeks ago, man. This is going to affect.
I missed the
Exactly.
Wednesday.
Yes, exactly. Right. And that's not really how it works, right?
Yeah.
But that's
so
how my brain says it.
that's how her brain. She's like, oh, I haven't done enough tempo runs or something, right? So
That's interesting.
I begged him for like a full year for tempo runs.
yeah, she didn't even know what a tempo run is. So, but I think that's the thing that if she could, or once and she's been doing much better. I feel like this last few training cycles, right? If she can continue to build on that consistency, then she's going to continue to build the confidence and then get into the events. And I've seen her do it before. Like we did a lot of obstacle course racing before we got into High Rocks. And, when we first started, I believe her confidence was a lot bigger and more consistent because she was so confident at the obstacles because we did a lot of, we came
Ninja
from
Warrior.
American Ninja Warrior backgrounds,
Ninja
right?
background, yeah.
And so that's all we did was obstacles. We could do any kind of obstacle,
Well, and
right?
also like for my frame just kind of takes to it because I'm very long, so things were a lot
Easier,
felt
right.
easier for me. So I was like, oh, I'm good at this. This is great.
How do you look at so what you're trying to learn how to do in my mind in terms of taking on the mentality you has? Like I get excited in that kind of challenge. Like,
Yeah.
can I do that? You know what I mean? So how do you look at new challenges in terms of for yourself? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? What's your
I wish I could say.
perspective
I
on
mean,
that?
I do get excited. I get excited, but then I also I get excited once until I walk up to it, and then I
Okay.
get there. I'm like, oh, and then my brain starts processing all the ways this could go horribly wrong. I'm like, oh no.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has seen the new Inside Out movie, but
I haven't seen it yet.
Where she's talking about there's a part where the little Inside Out
Spoiler.
anxiety emotion. Have you seen it yet?
No, I'm saying spoiler.
No, it's a thing. It's just a clip you can find anywhere. But she pulls up all these okay, well this could go this way, A, B, C, D, and she goes through this long list of all these possibilities. That is immediately what my brain does. It's this could go 20 different ways.
Right.
Only one of them is good.
But once again, I think that's a mind shift
It
in
is a
that
mind shift.
instead of thinking what are all the ways it could go wrong, why not focus on all the ways it could go right? If I do this,
It's a
right?
massive mind shift.
So it's definitely so the Bible talks about don't be anxious about anything, but through all things, through prayer and supplication, present your request to God. And then this peace comes over you. And then as soon as that happens, the next instruction is to think about things that are good and holy and of good report. So in other words, this scripture is saying, whether you believe in God or not, it's giving you this great instruction that says, okay, now you've already addressed it. You realize there's a problem. Now don't focus on the problem.
Yeah.
Focus on all the good things. Focus
Yeah.
on what you've done well.
Yeah.
Focus on, the things that that you're good at.
Yeah.
And if you'll do that, it's really crazy how the brain is like
we
this
talked about the positivity in the
insane
brain.
machine,
Yeah, 100%.
right? And when you think negative, it's like you manifest bad things.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
And don't start speaking negative because it makes it even
Yeah.
It
worse.
makes it worse, right?
Yeah.
And when you think positive, it's crazy how these positive things start
Yeah.
happening, right?
Especially if you speak positive.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to be negative.
I do have over my desk. I did write down because it's very similar to what he said, but it's focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And so I have that written down. And every time I get stressed, I have started looking at that, and I've kind of started writing it more places, just as a reminder. It doesn't help you to stress over the things that haven't happened. What are we doing right now? So that is something I am implementing more myself.
So to your point, so I'm a question guy. I just ask questions.
Yeah.
That's my
Go for it.
thinking questions. Every conversation is in
Yeah.
questions. So if I get into a situation like that,
Yeah.
anxiety and energy, list of these things go wrong. The question I ask is which one of these things can I control?
Yeah.
Right? you pick what you can control and then execute what you can control. If things go wrong after that, at least you know you did the one thing you could control. You see what I mean? And that's how my brain works. And it's just the same thing as what he just said, right? Understand what are all the problems that can happen. Now you know what the problems are, and what are the things you know that you can take care of and be control and be positive about. So I'm just a question asker all the time. You know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the things that helped me when I was younger was, you know, we all go through struggles, right? We all have challenges. 100%. We all have like these obstacles that happen to us in life. And now I don't think it's the exception anymore. It's the rule. Everybody's got some kind of trauma, right? Some sort of, you know,
something that's
happened that was like a defining moment in their life, right? And for some of us, there's multiple defining moments, right? 100%. And so, you know, there was a moment in my life where like all I could focus on was like the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And now I've gotten to the place, and I think a lot of it is just some of it's maturity. Some of it is realizing that those experiences were preparing me to be able to help other people and to season me and mature me. And so I realize now that those things, even though at the moment I didn't where they were a blessing, they actually were a good thing. And so now when something happens or there's a possibility or something going wrong or go bad or what have you, I don't necessarily get stressed out about it or freak out anymore, because I think to myself, all right, can I fix this situation? Can money, my efforts, right, or help fix it?
Yeah.
And if money can't fix it, right, or I ain't got the money to fix it, right, I can't work hard enough to fix it, or someone that I know that I'm close to can't help me with it, there's nothing I can do about it, so why stress over
100%.
it, right? And so some people are like, well, that's just, you don't care. I was like, no.
Because I can continue to stress,
right?
But I have no solution, so why am I going to continue to stress?
Right, so because stressing doesn't make it any better, right? And what usually happens is one of those three things can usually fix a situation, right? The problem usually is maybe you're not fiscally responsible, right? Or it's some crazy thing that just is out of control that you can't do, right? So you go to work to make money to fix the problem, right? Well, if it's maybe an immediate situation, well, does your pride keep you from asking someone for help, right? And so I think that's why the relationships are important. That's why having discipline and good work, all those things play into it. And so that's kind of the whole thing, is like, we are not like, there's not one single thing about us. It's like we have to develop all of these individual things in our lives to help us not just us be successful, but other people as well.
I've come to give people grace over the last few years. The trauma thing you said, right? I realize that as humans, we are a collection. We are a comprehensive collection of experiences and reactions to those experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And some people are still reacting to experiences, you know what I mean, from the past.
Yeah.
And the key is you hope that people can go back to that experience to understand why they react a certain way, specifically about having anxiety about performance, right? Who knows where that comes from? But if you could go back and think about the iterative process of asking yourself, why am I thinking like this? What happened? Did something happen back in the days? Oh, and then figure out how to move forward from that journey so you won't react to experiences that happened 20 and 25 years ago. You just learn from them, like you said.
You don't react the same way,
Exactly. And ties to your point. It's like then you can address situations, not necessarily objectively, but you can look at it and say, do I have the resources to solve this problem, right? Whether within me or financially or whatever it is. So that's a good point you were making.
Well, I think, you're constantly dealing with, the college aspect. So because anxiety, what is it called? Self-care? Is that
self-care is like the new trending,
like the hot terms, right?
The hot term right now.
So the question I have is, you're talking to these ADs, you're talking to these coaches, leaders, whoever they may be, right? Like, they're dealing with kids now that are dealing with issues that other kids didn't have to deal with, or they didn't. That weren't an issue. Anxiety wasn't an issue, or maybe they didn't address it.
It wasn't addressed.
It wasn't
addressed,
diagnosed.
Yeah.
Right. And so they just dealt with it, or just worked through it.
We just dealt with it. We were younger, right? We just kept going. Right.
What are some of the things that they're doing now, or is I would assume they're addressing it, because it is such such a secular world. Like, what are the things they're doing now to address?
So it's mandated by the NCAA, if the institution is a part of the NCAA, the governing body of college athletics, that every institution has on staff or immediate access to mental health professionals.
Really?
Whether it be psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, whatever it is.
I think that's great.
Because it's a big thing. And that's so they have something called SAC, Student Athlete something committee, and
Okay.
it is the students' voice in the NCAA. And
Okay.
for the past 10 to 15 years, this is what the students have asked for. We need mental health
That's
advocacy
great.
and
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
because they have had friends who have taken their own life or have had friends that are going through things. And this is the work I do, right? Helping people understand who they are versus what they do.
Yeah.
You ask a current athlete, high school or college, well, tell me about yourself, and the first thing they say is, I'm a football player.
They identify themselves.
You know what I mean?
as
It's like, hold on now, right?
Yeah.
Are you a football player, or are you somebody who is made up of these significant experiences and principles and values that plays football?
Yeah.
And so you see, I think about Tom Brady a couple years ago when he retired and the wife and the divorce.
Oh, yeah.
My perspective on that was it wasn't about the divorce. It was about separating from football after being a high-level athlete for 35 to 40 years
Right.
and still playing at a high level, but now I need to give it up. That's not an easy transition, right?
No.
Because that's how I know
That's
myself.
how- yeah.
That's
You see
his
what I mean?
identity.
Yeah.
100%.
Way
And
how
so,
he identifies.
in terms of student athletes, yes, mental health, they provide mental health advocates. They do that. You know, some schools probably do it better than others, but it's mandated, and it is very, very much at the top of mind for athletic directors because you don't want to be the one that's working at an institution and a student takes their own life.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you explain that to anybody, right?
Yeah.
How do we not see the signs? and
Well,
stuff
and
like that?
especially in this world we live in today, there's always going to be a finger pointed, right? Somebody wants
So
to
there's gotta be blame.
assess blame,
Yep.
Yeah.
right? And so it usually starts at the top,
Starts at
right?
the top.
And just trickles down. So
Yeah, 100%. It's a major thing.
Well, you mentioned, we talked about this the other day. You talked about, separating what you do and who you are.
Who you are versus what you
Right.
do. Yes, sir.
And so that's one of the things that I think for you, I think would be huge
Yeah.
is understanding that your performance does not dictate who you are,
Yeah.
right? Or it doesn't change your value.
Yeah.
Your value is already there, right? And your performance has nothing to do with
Nothing to
it,
do
right?
with
It's
that,
just
right.
like I said, it's just icing on the cake, right?
Yeah.
And so separating the two is that you don't have to earn anybody's respect, you don't have to earn anybody's love or your place on the team, that type of thing, right? You already have a place on the team and it's solidified,
Yeah.
right? And so you don't have to keep trying. And that's in football. You're constantly having to earn your place on the
You gotta earn
team,
your
right?
spot.
Stay there, yeah.
Right. In basketball, like I kind of made the team, right? But I had to constantly be performing and playing and practicing. You had to show up
you
to
gotta
practice.
There's new people coming on the team
Although
all the
Always.
time. It's
although
like,
James
come
has
on,
threatened
bro.
to cut me and Rocky.
That's for this. That's the podcast. You're constantly the podcast. You got to keep earning your spot.
We do have to earn our spot.
You gotta earn
The
that.
chairs.
He's dangling that over us pretty regularly, just making sure you'll know.
Yeah,
I can replace y'all.
Anytime. I could do this by myself. If I needed to. You know what I'm saying? I'll just talk for
Is
an
that
hour.
leading by fear or is that an inclusive environment? What are we doing here? That's hilarious.
I mean, he's never had to feel like he's getting replaced. So it's definitely like just these two exactly.
He was gone for 2 weeks. It was pretty close.
Yeah.
He was trying to take over.
Hey man, look, I watched a little bit of those, and Rocky was handling.
He was doing a good job.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. I think
And
James-
here's what's funny is while we were gone, right? So I get a report
James was watching
every
the
week,
reviews.
like of how many downloads
Yeah,
and everything
yeah.
we get. And the week that we were gone, right, was the biggest
100%.
downloads we had, right? And so I was like, oh my God. Well,
You can
then
stop right there, James. You can stop right there.
Yeah,
But
like
then-
in the conversation after that, right?
I
Yeah,
looked
a
at the
little more.
numbers, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't his episode.
Oh, it
It
wasn't?
was like the week before
It
when it was
was
just the
the
two of
episode that
us.
we did.
And we had like the best, like,
It was a really
it was
good
a good
episode,
conversation.
too.
Good.
It
Right.
was all about like positive thinking and like actually what's happening in the brain and all that.
So,
Yeah,
but
It was
like
fun.
I was getting real nervous for a second.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, maybe I should just
No,
dip out.
don't get nervous.
I
That
was
just means
saying-
you look. That would have meant you developed a good leader.
There you go.
100%.
That's right. That's
Although
right.
it would have been funny if we'd come back and like the J had been taped over with another R.
RWR would have been. You
RWR.
should have done that
That would've
actually.
been
Yeah, 100%.
You should have put an R up there.
That would've
Just
been
Rocky's
Print out a
face,
big
just
old
like
R
on
on
the-
that would have been perfect, dude.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like that.
So I have a question for you. So
Yes, ma'am.
you, on top of everything you do, you are also actually a coach with F45, right?
F45, yes, ma'am.
So going back to the very beginning of our conversation, we were talking about like what are you doing in your environment to create the culture? Like what is something you implement with
Well,
your training?
so I'm a sub. It's recent, right?
Okay.
Last couple months, but I'm a sub. And the reason I joined it is because the community at F45 Culver City is excellent.
Oh, great.
Right?
Okay.
And that's the reason I
I
joined
just
it.
did my first F45 work.
Oh, did you really?
Ago, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And,
tired me out.
and I like it. So here's the reason why I like being a trainer there. I don't have to create the workouts because
Yes.
they come from
pre-done.
corporate, right? They're pre-done. All I have to do is motivate and correct for them.
Okay.
Right? And so for me, the motivating and correcting form is what I like about it.
Yes.
Because that allows me to help people value the environment they're in and know that they're getting better after they had this hard 45-minute workout at F45. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what what
yeah.
I like about it in terms of my contribution to the culture is being a great motivator
Yeah.
and correcting form so that people feel valued that they got a good workout.
You don't have to worry about the behind the scenes work. You
I
get to focus on the person.
I get to
there
focus
in
on the
moment.
person there 100%.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
don't have to
great.
create the workout.
One of my good friends who's another High Rocks person, she also is a coach in F45 and she loves it.
Yeah?
she
Do you
does.
know what she loves about it?
I think same thing. I think she just likes getting to work with the people, and I think she likes to see people come in like at a certain level, and just over time, like the progressions they've made, and like knowing she kind of got to she kept them coming, and like gets to be a part of that journey with them.
Gets to
I think
create.
that matters a lot to her.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I like questions.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh man, Rocky, do you have anything? You're so quiet today,
You
bro.
have been
I have
very
been pretty quiet. I'm
You've been really
soaking it
quiet.
all in. I
Yeah.
like wisdom. I like listening to wisdom.
Rocky's sister was one of my first. So I used to activate sponsorships for Baylor University athletics. We would pass out T-shirts or sell programs, or
Okay.
you get a button when you walk in the game. So
Yeah.
I had between 20 and 100 people working for me. It's my little small business. And his sister Mary Ann was a graduate assistant. I'm a graduate school at the time, and I needed somebody I can trust to manage the operation and also lead the people as I was running around doing all the high level stuff. And Mary Ann,
Jeez.
as you guys know Mary Ann,
Oh, yeah.
she's like
Oh, yeah.
A level, everything needs to be done how she wants to be done. I was like, that's exactly who I need to run this operation. So yeah, Rocky's sister was great at that.
Yeah, that's why you're in town. He's a family friend. He became a family friend since then. He came to my mom's funeral this week, and then I asked him. Well, I literally spoke to you, and for the first, I guess, 30 seconds you talking, I was like, I gotta know how long he's in town. I need him on the podcast because what he's saying is like people need to hear it. This is great. But yeah, she was actually very on top. I love that. I love when she worked there because then we got to go and
all the
enjoy her
Baylor
benefits
Yeah,
that
that's
she got.
true.
We got to go on the field and whatnot. It's brand new McLean Stadium too at that
McLean
time.
Stadium, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know about an entrepreneurship, right? Being a leader of a business is like, that's not easy.
So
We
yeah,
can tell you that, right?
Businesses.
Businesses,
yeah,
right?
and that's what I actually. So listening to this, I'm like, I find out what my struggles were. My
Okay.
struggles are like I'm not training leaders. I'm
Oh,
not
wow, okay.
at all. I'm training people
To do the
what
job.
they do. I'm not telling I'm thinking about my Christian life business. I need to expand that big time. But the guy who I would trust, he doesn't know. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and that's just about it. One time I think I tried to get him to run a house by himself. He didn't know where to start at. I was like, okay, that's where I need to work on and training him completely all around, from sales to everything in between. And so I found out that my struggle, and I got now with the other business that I'm at that just came up on my lap recently. I need to have an environment to where people want to come to because I want to expand that to another level. But the only way I expand that is if I got people coming in. It's not just a family business anymore to where it's everyone can join. Where we can have systems in place, where there's processes when they come in, there's training. I don't have any of that. I was literally thinking we were talking in my head. I'm like, I need to get all this stuff done. I need to go.
You start thinking about scale, like, oh man,
I need to figure out what this person does, all of what they do, and why they do that, and all those things.
100%.
I think that's crazy because like systems is very important, but it's like one of probably the most aggravating things when it comes to business, because what you want to usually when you start a business or you're involved in business, it's because you have a passion for something particular.
Yes, sir.
Very few people have a passion for systems, but the systems oftentimes dictate the growth, right, and the maturity of a company or the business in general, right? And whether you're talking about athletics, an athletic department, if you don't have the right systems in place, and I'll use the church as an example. It's a perfect example, right? So we've always had like systems. You have to have systems, right? Because a church is not. I think a lot of people think church is business, like big business, right? They're making all this money, people giving money, they don't have any overhead, and none of that is true, right? It's nothing like that. You're constantly serving, you're constantly giving. On top of that, you do have like light bills to pay and mortgages to
All the
pay,
things,
right?
yeah.
And then people are knocking on the door. They're like, "Hey, I need rent money. I don't have any food," and it's just like constant. It's just a constant thing. And then on top of that, you're trying to raise leaders up. Some of them are volunteers, some of them are paid. And you're trying to create this atmosphere where you can disciple someone, you can teach them how to do a very physical job as well, whether it's like, media, right? Which is you have to learn how to use a camera, you have to learn how to use a switcher, you got to learn how to use a computer.
Yeah, when
programs.
Rocky's not around, a lot of stress.
Exactly. And
so
just one angle, right?
Yeah, you get these people in, and you don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know how they're doing it, right? And so you're trying to encourage them to train someone that in case something happens, because I guarantee something's gonna happen,
true.
right? That someone else can do that job, right? Or someone else can come in and do a halfway decent job of it, right? And so, as you're doing that, the only way that works is if you have systems in place where you're constantly training people, you're constantly discipling people, and you're managing that and maintaining it.
Yep.
And that takes a ton of work, right? And that was one of the things that I struggled with a lot when I was, when I was in the corporate world, was that my job was to basically manage, and that was like the most boring thing, and everybody thought I was never working, right? But really, I was constantly making sure that everybody else was working, right? And they were doing their thing, and they were learning how to do the things that they didn't know how to do. So it was constantly training, constantly like following up, constantly meeting, which nobody likes to meet, right? And so, it was frustrating for them, for me to do the job I needed to do, right? And so the systems of it are so important, because if you can make them seamless, then it makes everything flow so wonderfully. Specifically from the employee to becoming a position of leadership, manager, whatever.
To your point, Rocky, in a family business, the next level is implementing those systems and procedures and processes so that the family business can grow to become much bigger than what it is. So, I think you're thinking the right way to get on that path, right?
And I would say you don't even have to reinvent the wheel either. It's not one of those things where you got to just try to figure out, make your own. You can, there's all types of resources you can utilize that already have that information, already have that stuff that you can basically almost plug and play, right? And then as you develop, you can make it specific to
customize it.
For you, right? And what you need. And you don't have to use it all in the beginning, right? You can just use what you need, and then as things build and they form, then you can, keep adding more.
What I do, man, so in terms of helping people reveal their core values, what I do, it's all based on question asking, but what I do, and you went around it a little bit, but what I do is, first question I ask people is thinking about event, a celebration or a challenge in life that led to a significant decision, a significant life impacting decision, right? Celebration or challenge, whether it be a graduation, new job, or it be a death, something like, that led to a challenge. So think about that. And then when you think about that life impacting decision, what were the internal motivators that you used to make that decision? And a lot of times, the motivators that people use in a significant life-impacting decision are what they reveal to be their core values.
Sure, yeah.
And they didn't know it until something came up. You didn't know this was something that was so important to me. And sometimes they change, right?
Yeah, and they should. As you mature, right?
As you mature. Like for me, when my father passed away, my father passed away. I didn't know much about him. I was 18, but I knew him in my child brain instead of an adult brain. So I never really got to pick his brain on who he was and what motivated him to move to L.A. from Michigan, why, all this kind of stuff. So when we got the call, me and my mom were sitting around a table at home in L.A., and then they called from the hospital and said he passed away. At that moment, check on your mom, make sure she's all right. But then I asked 1,000 questions about him, why did he come out here, about her. And at that point, I realized nobody is going to come across my life without me knowing who they are and why they, what motivates them. And So I just started asking questions. And that's where, when I look back on it, that's where I realized curiosity was one of the things that's important to me. And valuing people, but curiosity to get to know people. And that's where the beginning of curiosity started for me, asking questions and continuing to go on. So I think when you think about a significant life-impacting decision that you had to make, the decision was to ask my mother a bunch of questions, and you realize what the internal motivating factors are, then you kind of start establishing what those core values are. And like you were mentioning to her, if you understand, your value, within the community, but then also what your values or your foundational principles are, like faith obviously would be one, then the other things you do, they're not going to shake you from your values, and they don't have as much weight as who you are and what you believe in and those principles. So that's kind of the one-on-one coaching work I do with people, or workshops I do with people too. So
yeah, that's good, man. You know, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I deal with when I'm coaching. It's so funny, man. Mm-hmm. Like, I am a coach, right? I'm coaching people on physical fitness,
yeah, 100%.
right? Most of what I do is run coaching, right? Mm-hmm. And then, you know, here lately I'm doing a lot of high rocks coaching because it's becoming a bigger part of our community.
Very big part of our community.
But you know, you're coaching people on how to get physically stronger, faster. And I cannot tell you how many times it transitions from that to more mindset, more personal life, right? Because all those things in our lives will affect what's going on, right? If you know, if your life changes drastically with your, you know, significant other, right, it can seriously hamper your training, right? If they don't like what's going on, or they feel left out, or what have you, right? You know, if something happens, like, you know, someone passes away, and you know that could halter things immediately, right? And so how we are able to process that and work through that will affect every aspect of our life. And so I can't tell you how many times things turn into, you know, I don't want to say a counseling session, right? But they turn into like
pretty much
a relationship support system, right?
Yeah. People feel like they can just like start opening up to James in their sessions. I mean, we've joked about how many times people cry.
Oh yeah, we at least 2 criers a month minimum.
I mean, but that comes with that comes with a lot of times being a leader, and a good leader has created and maintained an environment. But then also that coach part. You know, when I feel like you're helping me build myself up. So if something outside of the running needs to be built up.
Yeah.
So who do I know that builds things up good? I'm gonna go to the coach / leader. So
and I think that's the one of the joys of being a teacher or a coach is understanding that you don't just, it's not just one thing, right? It's everything, right? Because they all connected. So, but like personally for me, you know, because I think relationships are very important, right? And so that's one of the things that we, you know, with BC Fitness is like community and developing very relationships. Important. It's not just a gym, right? It's a family to an extent. And so we kind of insert ourselves into each other's lives, right, on a regular basis. And so if someone's missing or someone hasn't been in a while, you know, what they're bringing to the table is missed, you know? And so we check on them, and we're like, hold them accountable and things of that nature. And so I think that really helps keep people engaged. Yeah. I think it does help people grow in different ways significantly. But I think more than anything, one of the things that personally that, you know, people think that leaders think of themselves as being better than everybody else. You know, they know more. Yeah, right, and so maybe they think they don't mess up, right? And you know, and there's a running joke we have going on that I'm always right, right? And it's, I mean,
I heard you say that on the other episode.
He likes to
That's
make
hilarious.
sure the running joke is mentioned often.
It's, I mean, the downside is that
you're right
when you think you're wrong, and they're very adamant about how wrong you are, and then it turns around that they were wrong and you were right. It doesn't help. You know what I'm saying? You know, do you understand what it is I'm saying?
So I heard this on the other episode I listened to, and my thought when you were discussing that so eloquently, was that the problem people probably have is that if you are right, you don't always have to let people know that you're right.
Yeah,
there it
James,
is.
You know what I mean?
That's the struggle.
You're right.
And so a book I read, one of my base books, I feel like all good leaders or all good people who have some philosophy have a base book, is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
And what he says in that book is you don't have to prove people wrong.
You don't.
Right? You might just pose it as a question. Now I thought it was the other way, and then you know what? It might not be. I might be wrong.
And so I know that for a fact that's one of my weaknesses that I've been praying about and working on it. I've been trying to work on it. And actually today,
I sent you something recently on that too. It was like
so that doesn't help either. Is they're constantly trying to like
they
pick.
You probably have already built up this thing that
I have.
so they're always like,
it said,
you're so callous
when
on it.
Google told you that I was right.
Oh yeah.
Remember that one?
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember it. So
Him and I are always
but
doing this.
you know, because I want to build people up as well, right? I'm not trying to tear people down, right? So, but it's just so hard, you know. It's so hard.
That's hilarious.
And I'm working, and then when I do try to be more humble and like try not to engage, they attack me.
Do you ever?
Want it.
Okay, so in the rare times that he's wrong, does he admit, I was wrong about that?
No.
That's
Okay.
a lie.
No, you get so back me up.
Yeah, no.
You get
Okay,
silent.
okay. When was one time that I was wrong
see,
and I didn't admit to it?
It would be a miscommunication where no one was wrong or no one was
Yes.
right. It was like, oh yeah.
Just one instance.
It would be something else's fault.
Just one instance. Let's see. I just want-
There have been times, and you
I
definitely
love you,
won't-
James. I hold no record of wrong.
You won't agree to
See,
this.
isn't that convenient?
You won't agree to this.
But look, how to win friends and influence people. Never tell somebody when they're wrong. So
No.
they're just using one of the rules. They just
Well,
don't want
I'll-
to tell you.
Perfect
you know what I mean?
example. We were going on a trip. So last year, we were going to the High Rock World Championships. It was in London.
Don't do this.
Or I'm sorry, it was in Manchester.
Don't
it was
do
in,
embarrass
this.
her like that.
No,
It was in the UK.
No, that's what I think it is.
I'm just
Don't
giving
you
an
dare.
example.
Don't you dare give the example. I'm thinking
And
of.
we were talking about like some of the places we wanted to visit.
Don't do it, James. Don't do it,
No.
James.
It's already in the airways. Everybody already knows about it.
Yeah.
We're just trying to bring him up because he hasn't listened to all the episodes. Okay.
You're mean.
This is okay, Rocky. I
This
need
is
to hear
okay.
this.
I'm not wrong on this one.
So the example is this, right? We were talking, and one of our teammates that was going with us was like, "I'm going to go to Ireland," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And they were like, "I'm going to take a train," and I was like, "I don't think you can take a train to Ireland. I think it's an island." They're like, "No, this is a train." They were very adamant that there was a train that went, and I was like, "I don't think you can go, but okay, sounds good." So I let it go. I didn't say anything because I was working on not always being right or them being wrong. But it was like really like, I was like, because I was going too, and I was like, well, if I can take a train, I'd love to take a train. So I start researching it, and you can't take a train because it's like water.
Yeah.
And they don't have an underground tunnel or an overground, So, and so I was like, well, I hope they don't get there and then
Realize.
plan, and everything. And so I never said anything. I never brought it up again. Didn't like harp on it or anything like that. But that person found out when they got there that they couldn't take a train.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
You were such a liar.
That-
On
really?
So many fronts.
Oh, that's not
you
what happened?
did bring it up. You did bring it up to me. You asked me if I Googled it at the gym in front of a bunch of people.
That's all I said. But I just asked you if
It
you
was
had
a
got
loaded-
actually.
it was a very loaded
I asked the way you put it. I said
it was a loaded
I asked
question.
if she got her train tickets.
That's what it was.
That's what it was.
loaded.
But what's behind asking that question?
Oh, you know what the reason was.
Exactly. Look,
So I was working. I'm working on it. I'm not perfect. I struggle with many things, but this is the worst
But
one.
look, the best step
And he likes
in
to
working
keep
on
bringing
that
it up.
is just acknowledge when you're wrong. Even the
I
smallest
agree.
acknowledgement that, you know what, I put that in the wrong place. My bad.
I just
I
learned
agree.
to where, like, if he asks me, "Are you sure?" I just like I'm not sure.
I
of
think the
anything
thing
anymore.
is, though,
I'm not gonna argue.
I do admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But the thing is I'm so adamant about like how I admit when I'm right, or I'm trying to make sure that when I say, yeah, okay, I was wrong. Yeah, my bad.
They don't hear that.
They don't hear that because it's not as
Sometimes
forceful.
it also sounds
see.
very
Right.
sarcastic
there
and
it
very
is, and it's not me
disingenuous.
because I have a very dry sense of humor,
Yes.
right? And a lot of my stuff is
It's
sarcastic.
hard to 90% of the time because he is so sarcastic. We don't know if he's being serious or if he's being genuine. So we're like, we don't.
Which is another thing I'm working on.
So ask a follow-up question. When he says I was wrong and it sounds sarcastic, ask, what were you wrong about? And have him spell it out so that he can really
No, that's good.
acknowledge the...
That's
good.
really
I like
good.
that.
I
That's
like
a teaching-
that.
James is inside bowling up. Gosh, dog it.
I am. I'm keeping all these notes.
No, I like it. I like it. That's good because that's a teaching moment for me.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because then it
I'm gonna share
causes
these with
me
some of
to
our
say,
friends,
okay,
too.
I was wrong about this. Okay, my bad. Right? So-
Without the but.
without the
Without
butt.
the butt. No butt.
Without the butt.
No butt.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's hard for me because I got a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Lillian likes to make sure you know that.
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna keep working, guys. Right? So I believe that no matter how old you get, you can keep learning.
Are we
Right,
recording
and
all this, by the
maturing.
way?
Well, this is gonna stay on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna make this stays on. But I think it's important to continue to learn
Yeah, I
and
agree with
grow. And you're not always gonna be, no matter how. One of my mentors is wrong a lot, right? But he's right more than he's wrong.
Does he
Right?
admit that? Or is that your opinion?
No, he admits it. And when I say wrong, I mean like sometimes the way we handle things. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So like so we all have this tendency to respond, right? And I'm a big believer. Charles Swindoll once said that life is less about what happens to you and more about how you respond,
Yeah.
right? So it's less about the things that happen and more about our attitude, right? And so our response oftentimes comes through our experiences, the lenses of our life, and so. When you can learn to control those, right, through maturity and discipline, then a lot of times you can affect the outcome of a lot of relationships and not make things worse,
Yep.
right, make them better. And so, but there's always going to be this tendency. You always have this tendency to respond in different situations a certain way.
Yeah.
And so being able to control it is a big thing. So, I don't always respond the right way. I know that, right? And then and oftentimes when I don't respond the right way, I may even know in the moment, but I may not be convicted of it until later on. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
right?
sense.
And so I might have to go back and say, hey, I apologize, or hey, I shouldn't have said that. Or I think we were on a run one time a couple weeks ago, and I think you were talking about something that was going on at work.
Okay.
Right?
Probably.
And she was kind of complaining about the situation.
Venting, yeah.
She was venting and stuff, and she was running with 3 other dudes. Right? It was me and a couple other guys. And we're listening to this, and I don't know if they were, but me, I was getting frustrated, listening to the situation. And it wasn't that I was frustrated in how she was handling it, but rather how people were taking advantage of her. And that really bothers me when people take advantage of other people, right? Mm-hmm. Or when people take advantage of other people's kindness and their willingness to help.
Yep.
And so in that frustration,
and James knows I'm a pushover.
She can be,
I can
right?
be a big pushover.
But in that frustration, I respond to her, telling her how she needs to fix it. This is how you can fix it. This is what you need to be doing. Yeah. And then the other guys fed off of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, now it's
and it kind of became the 3 of them. And again, the 3 guys I was running with, James and 2 of the others, I've known them for a very, very long time. So I know everything comes from a very good place, from a place of love and being big brothers. So I never take it personally, but when 3 come at you with all this
and she didn't ask for our help
at once, it's just oh, okay, I'm getting yelled at.
Yeah. So she wasn't asking for help. She was just trying to vent. Right. So I went into the bathroom, and I was using the bathroom. We kind of took a little break, and I was playing it over. I was like, she didn't ask us for help.
Yeah.
We all just ganged up on her. I was like, that didn't help the situation. She's not going to take the advice, so I know that for a fact, right? She ain't going to do anything about it. So why would we make the situation worse by whatever? So I went out, when we got back outside, I was like, hey, I know you didn't ask for our help. I'm sorry. We should just listen.
Hey, but guess what? This situation actually corrected itself.
It worked itself out. That's true.
It worked itself out in a weird way.
So, and what's funny is we'd actually been doing this thing at our house. It's called Love and Respect, and it's relationships, right? Mm-hmm. And just talking about what men need, what women need, and how we can communicate better and everything else. And one of the things was that in say a marriage relationship, oftentimes your wife will communicate something to you, and she's not looking for a solution. Mm-hmm. She's just looking
to be heard.
Right?
They just want to.
But
heard.
For men, we're more about solutions, right? And if it's something we can fix, let's fix it, right? Yeah. And so I think there's a time and place for both, right? Because if you meet people at the point of their need, then they'll often meet your need, right? So it was just convicting me and thinking about it.
Yeah, I heard something on that actually recently. It was, I don't know if it was a relationship counselor, but they said going into a conversation with your partner, if you know they're coming to the table and they want to vent or complain or whatever it is, you can ask them up front, is this something where you just want me to hear you, or do you want me to talk this out with you?
And I've heard that before too.
I've heard that before too.
But with my personality, I feel like you just said, it would come off sarcastic. You know what I'm saying? Are you want me to help you fix this problem? You want me just to listen? I probably wouldn't be.
That is exactly how it would come out.
But I'm that same way, because my sisters, they have to not talk about stuff around me because they know I'm gonna lean in and just try to correct it, and provide solutions.
Well, my oldest brother is the same way.
So I agree. You got to ask the question.
Yeah.
Am I just
listening?
Yeah. even because, people will just start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so after they finish, it's how do you want me to, do you want me to, you want a solution, or
you just want a hug?
You got to ask, because if not, we're going to go into solution mode. Well, if you did these 3 things, you know what I mean? And so, we don't know.
Well, especially coming probably from your point of view, because you're constantly, this is what you're doing, right? You ask questions, you're trying to assess, plus you're getting great advice from people who've put those things into practice, right? So when you see it, and then I'm all about trends, right? And we use trends a lot in our training, and that I have people send me their runs and their workouts, and after you see enough of those, you see these trends of how you can help people improve or see what their improvement is. So I'm sure you see trends, and when you see, okay, this coach does this coach does this coach does this, or this AD does this, and then all of a sudden you're starting to see, okay, well, these guys are all doing this, and this is successful. Or there's 3 main things that I'm always seeing. Yep. Well, then when you are talking to somebody and they're giving you a problem, you know the solution.
You know the solution, but you got to gauge. You got to be able to evaluate in the way the venting is happening. Yeah. Is this a situation where I need to give my unsolicited input right now?
There it is right there. Unsolicited, right?
But you got to know, especially with a relationship.
Yeah.
I think sorry, not to cut you off.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm done.
I was going to say, and I think sometimes going into that, a way to think about it is the person who you're going to give the advice, or whoever's venting, they might not be mentally or emotionally at a place to be able to carry out what you're giving them. Like they might not be like have grown enough to be able to take that out.
Yeah.
So,
No, there's
like,
a saying.
Sometimes you can just send them to the lion's den unprepared.
There's a saying that says, don't cast your pearl amongst the swine,
Yes,
right? Now that sounds very harsh, right? But if they don't have an ear to hear, they're not going to hear anything you're saying anyway, right? So, and I think that's just the closer you are in relationship, it's easier to decipher that if you're paying attention, right? And so, obviously I suck and I need to learn.
So look, okay, I got one suggestion.
No one here would say you suck.
Yeah, don't say that, right? Words are be impeccable with your word, right? So I have one suggestion. Always ask how does that make you feel?
And how to like a psychiatrist.
A venting session. How does that make you feel, right?
And that's
before you want
tough.
before you want to give the solution, ask that question, and maybe that'll lead to possibly the solution you can give or wherever you want to go. But ask how you make it feel. That means you actually listening and want to know how this person feels.
No, and I
make that a habit, even if it's not genuine at first.
I respect that. That's tough though because
we've got so much homework for James.
That's hilarious.
Like I'm a.
James
Feelings.
doesn't care how you feel.
Huh?
James doesn't care how you feel.
It's not that I don't care how you feel.
You're just
right?
kinda like,
I think sometimes we focus too much on how we feel.
I was gonna say that's
and I think feelings sometimes dictate our decisions and.
But you may not be asking to know how they feel.
And I feel what you're saying.
Showing that you're empathetic may allow them to receive the information that you want to provide better.
And I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree 100%.
Completely agree with you.
I'm just saying the challenge for me, right, is so I don't know. You know how maybe not for you, but like for me, the older I get, the more I can relate and understand more about the older people that were in my life. Where like one thing leads to another. Does that make sense? Where like don't be alone with a girl because you're going to get her pregnant, right? And that's not true.
Yeah, but
right?
that was the philosophy, right?
But that was the philosophy because
I'm gonna have 5 kids.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And your life is going to be over like that, right? Because somebody's going to trip and fall. So or whatever. So the thing is that I can now see though is what they were actually saying was that if you put yourself in this position, this could happen. And if that happens, then it's going to be a lot easier for this to happen. And it's kind of like, gateway drugs type situation, right? So as I get older, I can understand that so much more. And so I immediately start thinking all of these things go through my head, right? And then the old man in me is like, I don't care about your feelings, right? When I really do, right? And I really want to help because I really do care. So I'm going to have to practice it. I'm going to have to practice. So next time I see you, next time we talk.
This is what my sisters have taught me.
On the homework.
My sisters have taught me because I'm like you, right? They be like, Ty, you don't have any emotion. I can come to you crying, and all you want to do is give me bullet points on how to fix it. I'm like, you came to me. That's what this is.
You came crying to me.
This is how you fix it. What do you mean? It's real clear.
Yeah.
Step 1, step 2, step 3. But ask how you feel. Makes me feel like this. What could happen to make you not feel that way?
Yeah.
Now you start working your questions towards a solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just,
I'm putting how does that make you feel on my list of questions. I'm gonna do it.
Put it. Where I think you should put it. You should put it like an asterisk under your 10 commandments that you put in the gym.
Gym commandments.
Gym commandments.
Title of this podcast: How does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel?
There you go. I like it.
That's hilarious.
I like it.
I think we got to get to the rambling part now.
We do.
We got time
We gotta
crunches
get
for
this
people
done
here.
on the way to his flight.
So I would like to designate Ty to have my ramble for the day.
Ramble,
He,
okay.
he spoke to me on Monday, the day of my mother's viewing, and a lot of people spoke to me that day, but I didn't hear most of them. But when he spoke, James, listen, I heard you that day too. Don't worry about it.
You're fine, dude.
Okay.
You're good.
But when he spoke to me, it registered and it hit the spot a little bit. He told me about a club that I joined, that he was a part of, that no one wants to be a part of, having both parents gone. And I guess you can take it from here, Ty.
Yeah.
I'll just say yeah.
So the philosophy he's talking about, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. So I have 7 core values I operate from. A core value is the definition I've come up with, especially when I'm coaching people, so we can be speaking the same language, is the preferred attributes that an individual or organization uses to guide behavior and decisions, right? And so I have 7 of them. Of the 7, I only expect 3 from other people. But the 7 that everybody can expect from me are loyalty, curiosity, accountability, resourcefulness, family, peaceful and positive energy, and the ability to adjust accordingly, right? And that's the last one is the one he's talking about, the ability to adjust accordingly. What that means is to accept and adapt what is reality, You know what I mean? And you adapt to what is reality. And the story I told the other day, it comes from in 2016, my mother passed away, right? October 2016. Then January, I was fired from my job at the American Football Coaches Association. The philosophy I had leading up to my mother passing away for years, I would always tell people, hey, look, in life we deal with celebrations, we deal with challenges. When the challenges come, we embrace them, or celebrations come, we embrace them, we learn from them, and we keep moving forward, right? And I said this a lot. And then my mother passes away. Now it's like, okay, you've been saying these words. Is this what you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I tried to do, right? I'm in mourning for however long. And then my boss fires me from the Football Coaches Association. And then that philosophy of embrace, learn, and keep moving forward evolved. And it evolved to this saying: the key to a peaceful existence is to master the ability to adjust accordingly. And because the worst thing that I always said, the worst thing that can happen is my mother passing away. That happened. And then you get fired. That blow doesn't hurt as much, but it's still a new reality that I have to deal with. The first reality is my mother passing away. The next reality is that I got fired from my job that I was at for almost 15 years, right? And so you have to adjust accordingly to whatever life deals you. And what I mentioned the other day, what Rocky was talking about, adjusting accordingly can be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. For me, I'm still adjusting to my mother, right? Now being around 7 years, 9 months, 13 days, however many hours we are in this day, and it continues to go, right? It's not something that's finite. So as life comes, you have to continue to adjust what life deals you. So the ability to adjust accordingly is important for me as one of my core values in terms of whatever's happening now, accept it as reality and adapt to whatever that reality deals you. And so that's what that is. The key to a peaceful existence is to master the ability to adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that hit the spot. Still does. I'm adjusting accordingly, though.
Adjusting accordingly. Continue on. That's what we got to do, right?
Yeah, that's it.
All of us.
Still got to get up every day. Still got to work. Still got to do our thing.
Got to do our thing.
You know, I think more than anything, these types of situations, right, that you're going through, right, the importance of having family. And I'm not just talking about your blood family, but I'm talking about, like, your church family, your gym family, whoever you consider to be part of your inner circle, right? And so, you know, I always think of life as like these circles. And so you have this, what we call the crowd, which is this large group of people that maybe you have interactions with, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, day-to-day, whatever.
Yep.
And the closer you get in those spheres, like the community, you know, you get down to the place of like what we call your core. And those are the people in your life that they're basically your circle of influence. So the people that speak into your life, that you allow to speak into your life, that you speak into their lives, what they do affects you, what you know, how, you know, you're basically walking life tandem, right? And so who are in these different circles, I think, changes. And it's important, the closer that sphere gets to you and your orbit and to that core, the more important it is to have those right people in it, right? So I think you have a really good group of core people, right, that love you, that support you. And so that means you don't have to do it by yourself, right? And so it allows you the ability to process it. It allows you the ability to respond, you know. And that's one of the things we talked about, or at least I mentioned to you, was like, it's okay to grieve. You have to grieve.
To embrace it all. Listen to it all.
Let it happen, right? And that allows you to move through it, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, is you've got to keep moving. And if you do that, then, you know, some of the, you know, I have people in my life that have had very similar instances. You know, my mom passed away in 2017, and you know, I have a brother, what have you, and we both processed it completely different, right? You know, I processed it, went through it. You know, we had different relationships, but still, we were still both close to her in different portions of our life. You know, but I was able to go through the grief, move on, keep living life. There are times I think about my mom and I get upset and I get a little sad, right? But I keep moving forward, and I realize that the best thing I can do to honor her is to be the man she raised me to be, right? The person she wanted me to be, and the person that I believe God created me to be. My brother, on the other hand, he held on to that, and he tried to internalize a lot of it. and make it like it was his responsibility, it was his fault, right? And it was the one thing he was holding on to, right? And it affected him very deeply, and he went through all these different coping mechanisms that basically almost, he would tell the same story, right? That, for the most part, almost destroyed his life, And so he had to come to this place and where he realized that he needed help. He had to get through it, and he had to, go through some rehabilitation, some other things like that. Now he's coming out on the other side of it, and he's realizing that, some of the mistakes he made was that at the moment he didn't process it properly, right? And so now he's able to do that, and he's doing so much better, right? And he's a different person. He's like, the guy I hadn't seen in 10 years, right? So, so for him, he's thinking now, I wasted all this time, right? Okay, whatever. It's in the past, right? And so, but if you can process it now, and you can, share and do all the other things, and, don't try to avoid it, right? Then it can be a joyful experience, a year from now, 2 years from now, because you can continue to grow and you can be exactly who your mom wanted you to be, right? And I believe you are. I think you're a great guy. I love you very much, and I know she's worked really hard, and seen you through a lot of challenges, right? And I think you've even experienced when your dad passed away, right? Some challenges that I don't think you're willing to go through again, right? And now you have a daughter, right? You have a family of your own. And so now there's a certain level of responsibility that can help encourage you to keep moving forward. And there's no greater legacy that your mom could have than you, your sisters, right? Your brother. And I think y'all are all a good testament to how good a woman she was. 100%. And so you keep doing that, then I think that's a beautiful thing. It is. That adjustment period, it could be just like his brother. It could be a challenging adjustment. He's still adjusting to reality. Yep. Even a new reality that he brought on himself by adjust. You know what I mean? Or it can be short. You just never know. It's just there's no definition. There's no set way to adjust. It's not wrong. It's not right necessarily on how long it takes. How long it takes. But I agree. The one piece of advice, and I think I told you, and you said this a few minutes ago, is don't avoid grief. Right, and for me, now that we're talking about it, it was probably good that I got fired in January, because then I could have the time and space to. My nephew was living with me at the time, so I'm happy that he saw me at that time. Right, he was 18 or 19, saw me grieving, saw me depressed, saw me leaning right into it because I didn't have a job. Right, and so I was able to do that. Right, so that's a good outcome of being fired. So don't avoid it, because it's going to hit you whether you allow it to or not. And if you avoid it, it's going to come at an inopportune time. But you can't say, I'm going to grieve for 2 years, because you don't really know how long you can, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still grieving. I've just adjusted to and accepted the reality that is. So just it just looks different over time, right? It looks different. And that's the only piece of advice I can give. You know what I mean? I always said the saddest day in the history of the world, of the universe, was when my mother passed away, right? But that only lasted until another friend of mine's mother passed away. Then that's the saddest day. And then, recently, that's, Miss Gonzalez, that's the saddest day in the history of the world. So you just adjust to what the new reality is, and you just take it on and continue adjusting. Right? No, I agree. Amen. So I think just for everybody listening out there, I think it's important for us all to understand that, we're all in this together, right? We're building a community. We're loving one another. But life is finite, right? It's not eternal, at least not our existence here on this planet. And so, the thing about life is nobody gets out alive, right? So if we understand that, how we interact with one another takes on a new importance. So we take every opportunity we can to check on one another, to be together, right? And you guys did that, right? Yeah. And if you do that, then you don't have a regret. And kind of like our racing, if we prepare properly, just whatever happens, right? And you're able to accept it, and you're able to move through it. So, if you're struggling with something, right? If maybe you come across, just understand you're not in this alone, right? And if you feel like you are, you can reach out to us, right? I mean, I'm a coach. It's what I love to do. Maybe I can, get you to the right people to help, or just don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to try to do it by yourself. There's no necessity to do that. We were not created to do life alone. And so we need one another, and we need to support one another. We don't take our value from from other people, right? But we do take help, right? And we do lift each other up, right? So a lot of people ask me all the time what BC stands for in BC Fitness, and it's meant many things over the years. But the thing it stands for more than anything else is building champions. And I believe that you can only build champions by lifting one another up, and that's how you truly build champions. And the definition of champion has nothing to do with your your medals or your trophies or the amount of money. The definition of champion is someone that is truly able to give back, be able to take in, learn, progress, grow, and not do it alone, right? And so that's that's my definition of champion anyway. So we want to consistently keep doing that. Ty, we thank you for coming on.
Appreciate being here.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. Pray for Rocky. Keep praying for him and his family. He'll definitely appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll keep moving on. We'll keep moving forward. And above all things, remember,
if you change your mind,
you can change your life.
booyah.
Ty, where can we find you at?
You can find me on social medias at Tai M Brown, TAIM Brown, across all social medias. Be sure to listen to the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much for being on, sir.
Yes, sir. I appreciate everything.
You guys have a great day.
All right.
Peace out.
Bye.